Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. I'm Aurora. It's December 20th, 2023. We're actually on the verge or going through at this moment the winter solstice in Northern Hemisphere. So it's an amazing, powerful time with tons of energy. So please make good use of this creative energy. Surf the time tsunami, come out in a good place on the other side. The topic today is sexuality, both healthy sexuality and unhealthy sexuality. And this is level 2, lesson 16. And sometimes in previous semesters, I have just conveniently glossed over and not presented this particular subject matter because it is actually the hardest. I think this is not my least favorite, but it's my least favorite topic to have to try to tackle. So I want to say go easy on me, but let's all work together. That's not even the right way to say this. This is a very, very difficult topic to talk about because there are real imbalances and traumas that are in your world, some very, very unpleasantries that are surrounding this. So also, let me say this. Most of my presentations are family friendly or appropriate for all ages. Don't have any incendiary words, not incendiary, but just difficult topics, words, or vocabulary words for people of other ages. But this is one selection where I would say might be better for only adults to watch this. And if you're a parent, and because I know I have some wonderful families who watch my videos together, and you might have young children, even if they're pre-verbal or whatever, like you just might want to make a choice about whether you would like to have them learn about these topics from this video from me, because I'm a big proponent of like parents should teach their own children about this topic. They shouldn't learn about it in a secondhand way from me. So if you are a parent, if you have children who usually watch, you might want to watch it together. You might not want to watch it. You might want to edit which parts you watch, because trigger alert, we are going to talk about here today, or I'm going to talk about sexual violence, rape and incest, satanic ritual abuse, profound institution-wide corruption as it relates to both banking, government, intelligence agencies, and established religion. I'm going to be critical of both Judaism and Christianity. I'm going to be critical of patriarchal society, or the distortions that are of a male-dominant society. I'm going to push a lot of buttons. And also, yes, I am going to assert that sex is for procreative and manifestational purposes. And of course, I do not want to be harmful to people who are homosexual. So there's two different topics here. One is trigger warning for people who have sensitivities or young children. The other one is let's establish my footing with the gay community. And first of all, I am totally not anti-gay, and I don't want anybody who's homosexual to feel diminished in my presence or from the viewpoint that I am sharing here, because you are who you are supposed to be, and you are your own unique presence, and you're totally free to be who you are. I will say that my information and the perspective and direction that I'm coming from in sharing about sexuality here today is focused on biological and procreative sex that I recognize. So I'm a cultural outsider, and I'm walking on a treadmill here too, if you wonder why I'm making these motions during class. I come from or approach sexuality as being very much related to your journey of consciousness, the natural behavior of genes as connection to light body, connection to time and timeline, and carriers of information beyond carriers of physical characteristics. And also as creative life force energy and sexual energy as being connected to your journey through time and creating or manifesting or giving birth to reality structures. And that I'm looking at all of this as creative life force energy, sexual energy, and the sexual activity, partnered sexual activity, as ways of making things happen. Sometimes it is reproducing a new human. Sometimes it is about manifesting an event or an item or an opportunity. So please comprehend that the direction that I'm coming from in this sharing has everything to do with looking at the activity and energy of sexuality as being purposeful. And I recognize that in this culture that I am within, I'm a cultural outsider, and that people here have been taught all sorts of different things and have all sorts of different approaches and use sexuality in all sorts of different ways. In this time and place, sexuality is also used as a dominance maneuver in human social dynamics. So it's used to establish empowerment over another person, either willingly or unwillingly. It is also sometimes, because you can imagine, sometimes it is used for people to be able to elevate their career. It is used as a commodity. It is commodified, and also sometimes it is used as an entertainment and or a personal self-expression. So if you're a gay person and your sexuality is used for a personal self-expression or something that is non-biologically reproductive, please know that I'm not hating you. Please know that you are okay. And I talk about all sorts of things too, about God, Jesus, Christ, religion. This is a very just twisted, messy topic here. And I have to say this at the beginning of this presentation because I'm very, very innocent. And like more than 10 years ago, whatever, I was teaching this class online in a different semester. And someone who's gay wrote in the comments that they thought that I was against them, and they thought that I was saying that they weren't allowed to have gay sex and that they were suicidally despondent in response to that. So this is my now, preventative measure, because I don't want anybody in the world to become suicidally despondent from the things that I talk about. Please know that you are loved and accepted by God. Know that you are the person that you're supposed to be. Know that you're doing what you're allowed to do in the world. You're making as long as you are having consensual sex with partners. Consensual sex, you do your thing. It's okay, it's fine. That is where I'm coming from on all this. But also, please allow me the freedom of my self-expression to share with you my viewpoint as a galactic walk-in, coming from a place of total purity and trying to give you a view on what the pristine world of non-distorted, healthy sexuality should be. And then I will absolutely talk all about the distortions that you're already pretty familiar with in your world, about what is, not healthy in sexuality in your world. So I definitely want to make sure that in this presentation, I give you the calibration of the way that things are supposed to be. But I don't want gay people to think like I'm not supposed to be. That would be a horrible disservice. And then we also have the topic of transgenderism, which again, 10 years ago was not even really that much of a thing, but now is much more of a cultural thing. I want you to know that if you're a transgender person, or if you have someone who's in your life, that those are also people who are loved by God and accepted, and they're on their journey. So, and we also have to make a distinction. Gay people have been around for a very long time across very many different cultures. Then there is right now where there are different endocrine disruptors that are pollutants in our world and in our various different food supply, and also the things that people are exposed to in home care products and cosmetics that literally do cause changes in people's endocrine systems, changes in their hormonal structures, changes in their attraction, behaviors, and levels of arousal that were not in the environment hundreds of years ago or millennia ago, that are a modern thing, and that the response of transgenderism might be recognized as a biochemical response to different irritants and pollutants that are here in the world, not necessarily as something that is a pure self-expression of who a person is, even though I do recognize some people are born intersex, and that means that they have a straddling of the definition of being both male and female at the same time, and that is naturally occurring. So we have naturally occurring amorphousness in terms of gender definition. Then you must admit we have unnaturally occurring gender fluidity or amorphousness that is directly related to chemical exposure in our world. And that all of this must be respected and recognized. But please recognize also that there is some level of influencing and social engineering of the artificial type of influence of gender expression, self-identity, and sexual behavior. These things are being used to artificially distort human behavior, human identity, and human sexuality. I talked recently with a lovely person who I also consider a very good friend, who is intersex and is a minister who ministers to the LGBTQ community. And I tried to express to them where the fear comes from in terms of the heteronormative world, the world of heterosexual people who are attracted to the opposite gender and who perform procreative sex and who build families, that they have been concerned that the gay community and homosexuality is being used as a tool or like a crowbar to, or a slippery slope, guide humanity into a world of pure transhumanism. And this is also where the fear of transgenderism is coming from the heteronormative sector of society, that many people are afraid of and intimidated, that basically the traditional biologically established roles of mother and father as parent, creating child as offspring, and the human definition of what is family, the tribal definition of what is family, is going to be obliterated through the use of technology, through first the erasure of boundaries or non-establishing of boundaries between what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman, and then artificial wombs, artificial conception and artificial gestation, what is sometimes called a creche, like an artificial womb that is not in a human being, that will be used in order to foster the next generation. This is the fear that is valid of the heteronormative community that is resisting transhumanism. And my lovely friend explained to me that they themselves and many members of their community felt that that they are an already marginalized community that then was bearing the burden of an agenda that is not their agenda. That people who are gay or who are transgender or who are intersex are actually not in alignment with an AI agenda or intention to remove parenthood and biological reproduction from humanity and instead hand it over to technology. They actually are not agreeing with that at all, and that they are feeling that it's rather unfair for them to be used as the, like I said, focal point of this agenda when they don't promote it, and they might be exploited, especially as a fringe or vulnerable community, to be bringing that in. So I think that's an important conversation to have here, and making those critical distinctions, because I'm not a transhumanist. So who and what am I? So I come from a place where it is a highly evolved place that is actually your future, but it is a time out of time when in that level of development, you're in what is called your light body, meaning you are perceiving all time at one time. You can read a person like a book. You read and perceive a person's body of pure abstraction, including everything that they've ever experienced, everything that they've ever done. And you are able to see their triumphs and their tragedies and their shames and their pride all at the same time, but it's all seen through a filter of love, not a filter of judgment and harsh scrutiny. And there's no such thing as a lie, where everything is truthful. You are who you are, and there's no way to hide it. And there's also total love and acceptance. That doesn't mean that is a blanket celebration of everything you've ever done. Some things are wrong things. It means a non-judgment in perceiving if somebody did something wrong or bad, or if they made a mistake. That's not the defining characteristic or moment of their life, because you see it in the context of who they are. This is where I come from. So I come from a place where there are no lies and where everything is very evident. And also, I come from a place where you are not defined by either being a man or a woman, or the roles that are culturally cultural outgrowths of biological necessities. And then I came here into this world, which is severely sexually dysfunctional. I'm telling you that, and you probably already know that, but it is severely sexually dysfunctional. I was very distressed when I first came here as a walk-in, and I found out what was really going on down here, and I'll share that with you. But also my personality, my sense of personhood, is not defined by either being a man or a woman. And so my initial like bio and stuff on my website from many years ago said, I'm neither a man nor a woman. Like I'm an abstract energy impulse and I'm here. And people thought that that meant that I was transgender. And I said, actually, no, I'm actually in a human female form, but the true nature of my spirit and who I am as consciousness is not defined as either male or female. And that is actually not a problem or a difficulty or a stumbling block at all from the level of reality that I emanate from. However, it is evident here in this time place. I have a female body, and I had to learn so much about how you are treated in a female body in this time and place. Here are the things that I had to learn as soon as I came into a female body. Not only how others would relate to me based upon my facial appearance, the size and configuration of my body, my age, and also other aspects of their projection upon me as a woman, and even in terms of my intellect, because I have so much cosmic information, came with a lot of information to share. And in the structure of your world, I did not know that it was patriarchal and that I would be condescended to or looked at in a diminished state in being in a woman's body, because people would think that I would not be as intelligent as a man. As you can tell from my SpongeBob face, I'm like, that's how they do it here. That's how they do it here. So there's a longstanding tradition so far out of your male-dominated society that you're presently living in and coming out of, social cultural structure of diminishing the expectation of female intelligence and elevating male intelligence. And I also should say at the caveat, this is a very, very long beginner intro, cover your ass type of thing, whatever footnote here. I'm also not against men, because I'm going to talk about a lot of things today here that might be triggering or challenging to hear about genetic modifications that have happened throughout the course of your species and the behavior of males, and also male anatomy, the way that arousal happens for males and how that is presently distorted. That might also be very challenging for you to hear. And I'm going to talk also about the gods that are worshipped as the true God here in this time and place, that I would say are not the true God, are not even benevolent imposters, but are very, very dangerous and malevolent imposters who have basically been creating this world as a trauma factory that sustains, that is convenient to their existence, but that is a huge insult to you, the experiencers, you, the suppressed, and also to the fabric of space-time itself. That's a lot. That's a big mouthful. Everybody, like, drink some coffee or something like that. I'm drinking real coffee with caffeine because it is a crappy rainy day here, and we need a little bit of a lift. So, okay. DNA. Let's start with DNA. DNA is a bridge of light between your physical cellular embodiment material body and your body of pure potential, which is made of possibilities and probabilities and what can happen in time. I emphasize this over and over. Your DNA is not merely a set of physical characteristics, blueprints for your body, how to make protein structures. Like, this is the protein structure for how to make brown eyes, or this is the protein structure for like how to create a shoulder or an ankle or big toe or anything like that. DNA does that, but it also does so much more, especially in the behavior. That DNA has behavior, it has dance, it has patterning that is connected to creating structures in reality. So first, we are defining and moving beyond the definition of DNA as merely an expression of your physical characteristics. It has everything to relate to time. And then we must talk about DNA. Your DNA is used in your body for the replication and reproduction of your own cells, as mother cells create daughter cells. Like, my earlobe remains my earlobe because my earlobe cells make copies of themselves, and my old earlobe cells from last week died off, but now I have new earlobe cells that took their place. That all happens through genetic reproduction, your genes literally passing your own characteristics on to yourself in each future copy of yourself that you will inhabit as you are moving through time. But your DNA is also used to transmit information across vast distances to your next generation of progeny and to future generations that will be their progeny going forward. DNA, in short, is your connection to your entire species, the soul of your species, or the story of everything that you as a biological group have been through up into this. This is me in the past. This is all humans and all the life forms moving up into this moment. This is you and your group of your fellow humans as a species, as defined by the various gyrations and, twisting togethers and turning aparts of what DNA has done up until this point. And then what is going to happen, your evolution moving forward. So this relates a lot to the transhumanist agenda. Which direction or what shape shall you evolve into? Will you as a species evolve into being highly technological dependent or addicted or reliant upon technology to the point that you cannot reproduce without its assistance? That would be like having an artificial womb. It's also similar to these lovely French bulldogs. They're funny little dogs. My dog actually doesn't like them that much because they make kind of a snorful, funny face, funny shape. Their noses are shaped weird, and that's because of selective breeding. So humans have been selectively breeding dogs for a very, very long amount of time, and they have bred certain groupings of these specialized dogs in such a way that they can't reproduce themselves naturally. French bulldogs can't give birth regularly because of the way that their pelvises are shaped. So all of these generations have to be done through human intervention. Your dog has to have a surgical removal of its puppies. If you didn't have human veterinarians, if human veterinarians disappeared tomorrow, you would also have the disappearance of future generations of French bulldogs because they require assistance in their birth process. That is one example of being required or reliant upon technology in order to have the future of your species. And it's a very vulnerable position because if that technology is whisked away, you don't have tomorrow, you don't have the next generation. And basically everything about your biology and about DNA itself is about preserving fabric of reality architecture and creating the future, that you have all of these amazing innate tendencies that are made so that you can continue to have people in the future. You can continue to have your species and life in the future. And you have to have some level of expectation and belief in the original blueprint, like you're like God, who made you at the factory, that they made a good product, that they did not actually make a flawed product that would require, surgical intervention to be able to have future offspring. Or when we talk about transhumanism, we're really talking about even beyond like having to have an artificial birth or some form of intervention to have a birth, but then to be sustained. Like, what if it's like, well, not only are you gestated in an artificial womb, but then also you'll need your this injection, or you'll need your this pump, or you'll need your this implantation, or you'll never survive without your blah, blah exoskeleton. And that an organism or group of organisms becoming so reliant upon external accoutrements to survive that at a certain point it becomes non-viable. That's actually a very clearly defined path for humanity that I do not espouse or encourage, but it exists. Just know that it exists. Hopefully you are recognizing this as a cautionary tale. You're like this, keep it away from me. I don't want to go down that direction. It's what you call the grays, all right? The grays as a series of future or interdimensional time traveler time hoppers backbending their way into this level of reality because you're actually their deep ancestors, but they are on a timeline where they have realized it's a dead end. They've done the artificial creche thing. They've done the endless inoculations thing. They've done the self-genetic mutilation thing, genetic modifications, and they've made themselves, key point here, non-viable containers for consciousness. So DNA and your pristine architecture are meant to keep you as containers for consciousness that you can then continue to transmit information into the future. Your DNA is connected to a huge continuum across time. You are part of a natural biological supercomputer, and each generation and everything you're doing with your DNA during your lifespan is part of this incredibly complex and amazing and positive larger calculative structure. And when you begin to mess with that, you begin to mess with the outcome. Like, what 1 + 1 = 2. Good. 1 + 1 = 3.5. No, that is not correct. So as you think like, this isn't right. I'm gonna make it even better, right? Quote unquote. And then you end up mixing up the math of the future because you thought that you knew better. Then you find out that that is a huge folly. And humanity right now is engaged in a huge folly. Again, these negative dead-end timelines branch off from this moment in human history where the unmentionables occur subcutaneously in certain levels of the population, making these non-viable futures. Non-viable futures, because if you genetically mutilate the human to a certain extent, then you're not going to have more humans. And that, in the fail-safe mechanisms of the cosmos, that is actually some pretty smart stuff, because you're like, you know something? If you play bad music, you can't stay in the band. You're like, wrong note, everyone looks at you. That's not the right note. More wrong notes. Everyone's like, this is not sounding good. And you play a couple of more wrong notes. That's it. You're kicked out of the band. You can't be there anymore. The band is life. It's being alive. So if you are not able to conform to these genetic patterns that have to do with being alive, then you're technically not allowed to be in life anymore. And technology is the compensatory mode that many technology using space races or organisms or organizations are attempting to use to hack the system, or basically to evade responsibility, where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to conform to these genetic patterns. That's not convenient to me. I'll do it in a different way, but then I'll use technology to compensate. And that is a stopgap measure or a compensatory mode or a band-aid or a crutch that only works enough to get you along a little bit of the way, but it's not going to give you eternal life and longevity and coherence to keep the calculation of the supercomputer going. You are here right now as successful candidates. I wanted to say, you passed the audition. Congratulations, you passed the audition, and you got born into an actual biological body, and you are bearers of DNA, and you bear a responsibility. Like, on a soul level, you made a choice. You're like, I'm going to come into a body and I'm going to have DNA. But that means that you are sworn to protect DNA. You are sworn to uphold these patterns and to make certain that your species continues to exemplify life-affirming characteristics, as opposed to disease, pathogenic behavior and characteristics, and the dissolution or extinction of your species. And part of this is through sexual reproduction. Part of your biological prerogative and your responsibility in life is sexual reproduction of your species, either you personally or the larger community that of other people that might be doing it. You're like, this is what I'm trying to articulate here. You might personally not choose to be a parent, but you must support and celebrate parenthood in your community, because if you don't, you're not going to have future members of your species. If you're like, I don't really like kids, I'm not going to have any. And also, I don't care about any of you. That means I don't care about your school systems, or I don't care about, if subcutaneous pollutions have to happen to children, or I don't care about their nutrition. I don't care about the school lunch program. I don't care about this, and I don't care about that. Then basically what you're saying is you don't care about the future, because you're embedded in time, and everything that you're doing has a big impact on the future. So ideally, you recognize that you have a biological imperative to preserve and improve the characteristics of your species, and that this is in the pristine system when biological reproduction happens in freedom. And you must recognize that a lot of what you have right now is not social freedom. So the correct choosing of biological characteristics happens in social freedom, and it is initiated by the female of your species. This is very big. The females are meant to be the gatekeepers, the womb holders of your species, to determine what characteristics are going to get passed on to the next generation. And that is done largely through what are the attractants of what attracts a female to a male, what makes a woman wish to procreate with a particular male. And those characteristics, of course, vary wildly from culture to culture, as many of them supersede or contravene the natural impulses inside of a person. So you might have a natural innate instinct to be attracted to like hugely muscle men, like big, strong muscle men, but maybe there's a cultural overlay that says, no, big muscle men are not going to be good husbands, but find skinny men with glasses. They will be a good husband because maybe they're intelligent or they have good jobs or there's some other aspect that is an overlay beyond the biological imperative that means that it will be positive for you to have their characteristics come through you and go into the next generation. This is all very foundation stuff about how your biology should function and how your consciousness and your spirituality should function too. However, there are vast imbalances that you have this world where even in this time frame now, 2023, there are still the disempowerment of females in various different cultures and countries, arranged marriages. Any time and place where you have arranged marriages, you have a dilution of your species because you do not have females who are actually choosing their mates based upon positive personality and biological characteristics that will then be passed on to future generations. You simply have males in a male-dominant society exerting their power to be able to procreate with the female of their choice. And the characteristics that they pass on are not necessarily positive pro-life characteristics that will strengthen your species. So that is, and that's something that has been going on. The dilution of your species due to the disempowerment of women has been going on for many thousands of years, even back to 5,000 years ago, when what is known as the Old Testament or the Bible or the Torah, which is one of the foundation documents of your present culture, was written, women were so diminished and so devalued and disempowered that they were literally treated as a chattel, so a commodification, something that you own, something that is owned and sold by males. And that has been normalized through your entire culture, even to the point of the tradition of the engagement ring. None of this is in my notes, but your engagement ring is an outgrowth, a vestigial outgrowth of the sense of a dowry, and basically the disempowered female that is given a token of value that will be like in exchange for her sexuality. That the dowry was like saying, first of all, women were looked at as burdens, like another mouth to feed, and someone who's not strong, who can't really work in the fields very effectively, instead of saying an incredibly valuable person who will give me the future generation. So diminishment, devaluing of females, and disempowerment of them in terms of being able to choose who is their husband, and then buying and selling them and buying and selling access to their wombs just for purposes of familial and tribal procreation. And then there's also prostitution. And I recognize that you live in a world right now that is profoundly diseased sexually, and I'm going to draw a little diagram of how this destabilization goes across your whole entire world. But just recognize that prostitution happens when access to sexuality is commodified. Yes, prostitution in your world right now includes both males and females as the prostitutes or the commodifiers of sexuality. Females have commodified sexuality in this male-dominated world of disempowerment and devaluing of females for over 5,000 years, because that has been one of their only levels of empowerment. But prostitution, selling and commodification of access to sexuality and to procreative organs or reproduction of the species is also how you dilute your species. That is not how you get the next best generation. That is not how you get the best, most effective combination of variables to make the next people that are going to be here. That is pretty much the worst way to, so there's like by force, by arbitrariness, and then through commodification, purchasing things to be able to say who's going to be in the future, access to the reproductive miracle known as the womb, to be done through a person buying it and using physical commodification to be able to be empowered in that way. I mean, from where I come from that level of reality and from that viewpoint, unimaginable, unimaginable. And also, so unimaginable just in terms of the assault on the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, and the dilution of the future, and the diminishment of the natural behavior of DNA, which is itself sentient and expresses preferences about what characteristics are going to be in DNA, the fabric itself, but also in terms of social and the implications, the social and cultural implications of what it is to be either bought and sold as a person, or to have that become commodified, have reproduction and sexual activity be commodified in a way that it is something that is it is an objectification of something that is incredibly valuable that should not be commodified in that way. So wait, and before I'm going to draw this picture for you, but before I do, I'm going to read something from my notes that I am the most proud of, because I wrote these notes from the teaching that I did from 10 years ago. And this is all still very accurate. And I was very, went out on a limb in speaking so openly about these things 10 years ago. Here's what I want to say. Okay. So I'm going to start off with like the horrific worst stuff. We're going to talk about mass shootings, satanic ritual abuse, and the connection of unhealthy, unwholesome, you would call them extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional influencers of consciousness on you as a human species. Let me just read this verbatim from my notes. Okay, so the same thing. Okay, oh, please, trigger alert. I will speak about sexual violence right now. So we're talking about the hijacking of sexual energy. Whoa. Well, first I'm just going to read this, then I'll go back to the top. All right. Hierarchy of abuse. Our government, religious institutions, and banking institutions are all engaged in a pyramid scheme that is the economy of hell. And we're preparing here for lesson 18 and galactic history. That will be in another couple of weeks. Presidents, bankers, university presidents are all part of this theater of abuse. Priests from the altar boys send energy uphill to the actual non-corporeal demon, or the interdimensional concept entity, the non-embodied concept entity that has been feeding off of human misery. The Vatican is flat out this hierarchy of abuse. The CIA is this hierarchy of abuse. And many people who are active in high levels of finance and banking are taking part in this hierarchy of abuse. Being aware of this behind the scenes manipulations of reality is the first step to stopping it. And then, so I brought forward the conversation 10 years ago in 2016, and moving forward, humans, this is me now, and I'm diverging from my notes, have become much more aware of these activities. You haven't quite solved them yet, but you are much more aware of them yet. So what I'm talking about here is, in a pristine system, your human sexuality is used to not only generate new earlobe cells or generate your next future people, tiny humans who will be your children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, but human sexual energy is also used to create events in reality. And that these different organizations and edifices that I delineated and mentioned there are attempting to hijack your creative energy in order to manifest the realities that are convenient to them, that serve them. And these organizations and institutions, is the word I'm looking for, are not human, and they are not human-centric. They do not serve humanity. They serve their own existence or semi-existence, or what passes for existence, and the status, maintaining the status quo. So this is all stuff, consciousness residues, putis and demons, things that never existed or should never exist, attempting to hijack the living life force creative energy of the living so that they can sustain their semi, half, or non-existence through siphoning that energy off. And that's pretty much the world that you live in. When you wonder, why do these things happen? Why do these bad things happen? It is because the energy for making reality events in the future is being taken away from you and then twisted and distorted by these other things, that they don't have their own sexuality. They don't have their own uterus. They don't have their own testes. They don't have their own DNA. They don't have their own souls. They don't have a connection to time and to reality, but they want to somehow do stuff, have stuff, or make stuff happen. And so it is through the hijacking of your creative energy, your reproductive system, and your whole entire orange chakra network that they are attempting to rule your reality. Now let me draw this picture for you. First, I will draw some of my famous stick figures. Just give me a minute here. And every single one of these individuals, of course, has the full array of your chakras. I don't know if I'll draw all of them, but just, I'm trying to be fast and not bore you with this. But imagine that you have many, many, many. I'm not even going to draw that many stick figures because even that's a little bit laborious, but I want to draw a whole network of people. So now, instead of drawing more stick figures, I'm just going to draw some little dots. All of these all represent people too. These little dots are all people too, all right? And so every single one of these people has all of the chakras from red all the way up through violet. But what we're going to focus on right now is the orange chakra, which is right here. It's below the level of the belly button, but is not the root chakra. So your root chakra is involved in sexuality, and it has to do with basic survival, the I am presence, I exist in the world, and the root of your anatomy, the base of your spine. Big emphasis here. The base of your spine is your coccyx bone, but not your anus. And a lot of these dystortion, dysfunctional expressions of sexuality that are about abuse, power abuse, not only non-procreative sex, but the inversion and diminishment of healthy sexuality have to do with utilizing the anus as if it is a sexual organ. It is an excretory organ. It is not a sexual organ. So if we name the sexual organs, that includes the penis and, of course, the urethra and the testes and the clitoris and the vagina and the uterus. The anus is not a sexual organ. You wouldn't know that from the cultural normative approach to the things of sex positive descriptions in our world. It has become something that is normalized in our world, but that doesn't mean that it is the way. I'm talking about energy. So yeah, the way that I can just blow past all of your cultural impositions here is for me just to make it very clear. I'm talking about pure energy, not actually religious or spiritual judgment or some kind of arbitrary or whimsical value system. I'm just talking about how energy is supposed to flow. So I'll talk about healthy sexuality, but first, this is unhealthy sexuality. In unhealthy sexuality, you have life force energy that is being destabilized, and let's say it's making chakras go at a not healthy angle. I'm just trying to find a color I can use. Like it's making them go at a unhealthy angle, and energy is being siphoned off. It's destabilized. So imagine that chakra, it's wibbling and wobbling. It is not a stable, healthy, whirling vortex of energy structure. But that does not just happen in a contextless void. All of these orange chakras are connected. In fact, all of your chakras are connected socially and culturally and across time. You're on a big, giant emotional network. And for we were talking before we started class today, some people are calling this the BAN, body area network. This is also part of how the transhumanist agenda has been hijacking your chakras or your non-physical energy field and using it as part of a technological supercomputer. So you're part of a biological supercomputer that is ancient and that is beautiful and that is positive and that is something that you're supposed to be part of, and the calculations are part of your life and you're moving through time, and every activity and thought that you're doing has everything in the world to do with calculations on a larger level. Then you have this much, much smaller, less impressive, crappier thing that's like a real nice, natural, telepathic body communication network system you got there. It would be a real shame if something happened to it, like if I decided to put my ideas into it and crap it up and also use technology. And that's exactly what is happening. I'm being very blithe and lighthearted in my presentation, but this is actually very deep, dark, distressing stuff. So maybe we need extra comedy today because this is a super crappy topic. What I have just done is drawn a little sketch of a sense of a network of all of these emotions being connected. So your emotional realm is not discrete to you. Your emotional realm is absolutely connected to your community. And that means that if someone else is having a wildly destabilized orange chakra, either through maybe they were violenced or they were abused, or maybe they have a set of inner assertions or values or wrongnesses in their mind and wrong conceptions in their mind about anything about how they're supposed to use their body or about what is the appropriate way to do stuff, that affects and afflicts everyone else. This guy over here with his wildly out of control gyrating orange chakra then makes all of these other people, all of their chakras go askew, 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 askew. So the smaller version of this would be this guy over here has imbalanced views about sexuality and is looking at one of these other people over here. Like, let's say this person over here is a woman and she's walking down the street and he's looking at her and he's wildly destabilized and he's going to sexually project that energy of wild destabilization upon her, even if there's no touching, even if there's no actual physical violation. The negative way, the inappropriate and exploitive way that he is looking at and perceiving and drawing sexual energy from her then destabilizes this chakra in her. All right, that's just the first, like, the wolf whistles of the construction guys. All right, destabilizing someone else. So much more than just wolf whistles. Because wait, I'll go back to my face because that's just why do burqas exist? Have a whole continent pretty much in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, not continent, a whole subcontinent of human beings who recognize that the unhealthy gaze of certain males coming out of that culture is going to wildly destabilize their entire culture. You put on a giant amorphous bedsheet garment so that that view is not going to happen, so that that wild destabilization doesn't happen. That is like not only cultural normative of something that is pathological behavior, but also blame the victim because it's like, it's your fault that you as the object being objectified are triggering this person over here who can't control their arousal system, but also they can't control their arousal system because of a very, very long and horrible tradition of human genetic distortion, genetic manipulation, genetic modification, specifically as it relates to the functionality of penis and male arousal, the separation of your mechanism for arousal from the stimulus and your emotions. All right. So the arousal mechanism in a pristine sexual environment is meant to include that males will be attracted to partners who are fertile, appropriate, and will give them healthy offspring. And when I say appropriate, this is usually a prescription against incest, where if you have attraction to your own family members that is inappropriate biologically because you will have babies that are not healthy babies, tends to reinforce these diseased body traits, recessive genes, that means your future generations won't be healthy. It's very easy, normal biological reasons why you should not have sex with your own immediate family members. Very, very obvious. And if you want to know why, just look at the ruling houses of Europe, which were largely incestuous, had tons of recessive problems, like the disease where you bleed excessively. It's hemophilia. I think that's what it is. Hemophilia, hemiplegia, something like that. And many other facial deformities, dental deformities, spinal deformities, lots of deformities. They had deformed babies because they slept with their immediate and family members. All right, it was considered to be a way of not diluting the royal line. But what it meant was they did not have enough genetic diversity to support their population, and their babies were not healthy. Not supposed to have sex with your own family members. So you have cultural outgrowths and taboos that come from very, very real biological prescriptions against doing something, because those traits are not going to be healthy traits. And if I'm telling you something that sounds intuitively obvious, like, please forgive me, but you recognize this. So male arousal is supposed to protect you from having offspring that are going to have deformed faces and bleeding diseases, because you're not supposed to be attracted to people who are too similar to you genetically. You are supposed to be aroused by and attracted to people who are slightly different than you, so that way there will be genetic diversity and the future generations will be stronger. So you have, I'm just collecting my thoughts for a minute, sorry. And sometimes you can tell, like, it's such a difficult topic. Sometimes my brain destabilizes and I'm trying to stay focused, and the different topics are moving away from me, because it's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't talk about this. Like, I fully admit I'm having a lot of challenges staying focused, and speaking authentically about these things. And there's, very, very real reasons for that. So arousal should not include, this is why my brain didn't want me to say this, something or someone who is not fertile. So that would include a female who is not in her childbearing years, or a person who is not of the opposite sex. Like, if you're a man, you're supposed to be aroused by and attracted to a woman, so that you will put your energy into making the next generation. And this is not meant to be a judgment or diminishment of people who are homosexual, because I recognize that you might have a completely different soul journey or prerogative beyond reproduction and beyond having the focus of being a family person, that you might have a different mission in your life, which is perfectly acceptable. So as I'm saying, the bad news to males, that your basic body form and anatomy has been diluted from your original blueprint and how you're supposed to be. I do not wish to be insulting to people who aren't attracted to the opposite sex, but ideally, when your anatomy and your sexuality is in pristine state, you're supposed to be attracted to members of the opposite sex who are fertile, and then will give you future generations. So the activity of the sperm and the activity of males are supposed to be analogous. The activity of sperm, you have many, have a whole array of possibilities. Which sperm is going to be the one that germinates, causes the conception event, and that brings forward those particular characteristics in any opportunity where there's reproductive sex that's happening. So whatever, if you have 10,000 sperm in one ejaculate, but only one of those is going to be the one that is going to pass on the characteristics to the next generation. And you want it to be the selected characteristics that are desirable, including the desire to exist in the future. If you have a sperm that is either not self-constructive, or that does not wish to exist going forward into the future, that it will say, I'm going to swim in this direction and not go towards the ovum, I'm not going to fertilize that ovum. If you have a macroscopic male who does not go towards eggs and towards female and is not attracted towards females, that is fine. But that means that that is not going to be procreative, and that consciousness is not going to move forward down the time tunnel through DNA into the next generation. In your family structures, it means that the family name is not going to be carried on. If you do not procreate, your lineage or your particular biological ancestral story will reach its final chapter. This can be good, this can be bad, it is what it is, but just please recognize when I move beyond, like an expression of judgment or preference, that's what those behaviors are. And that, again, it is not meant to be diminishing of anybody, but that if you want to have a future, you got to have somebody who's swimming in the right direction, is going to make a baby. All right. Yes. and that hopefully the person the sperm or the man who is swimming in the right direction and is attracted to a fertile female has the characteristics that are also desired to move forward in time to be a part of your species. So if women decided we are only attracted to men with blue eyes and we will only have sex by our own free choice with men with blue eyes, then you will only have that go into the next generation or whatever arbitrary level of attraction, because not only should ideally is it designed for males to be attracted to females who are non-family members and who are fertile. This is important. If you're attracted to a female who is 5 years old, that is considered an aberration. Do you know why? Because 5-year-old females literally cannot give birth. And it is considered to be one of the greatest violations to force a tiny child to have sex non-consensually or to groom them to do it consensually, as they cannot furnish their own consent. They're biologically not mature. So all of this, biological reproduction should happen amongst biologically available, mature participants, not amongst members of your population that are not viable yet in terms of being parents. And then also, I know you have menopausal ladies, you will not necessarily like what I'm saying here, but yeah, if you are no longer fertile, then you should not be considered attractive to the generation of males that is meant to impregnate women in order to move the species forward. That's it. If you are beyond your childbearing years, then that is not supposed to be considered attractive. And that I know that might be like, be considered very insulting. Like if you are whatever, 55 and older, to say you're not supposed to be attractive, that's very unpleasant to hear. But biologically, this is what's supposed to be going on. Because if you can't have a baby, man is not supposed to want to have sex with you. He's supposed to find someone who actually he can have sex with. Please don't take any of this out of context. It's already hard enough to be able to speak about these things without like, I'm tiptoeing over landmines here. So please, ladies, because I know ladies also have a lot of questions about their appearance and a lot of sense of self-diminishment, and especially as women age and as they, they feel like they're already losing their youth and their beauty, and they're like, and then Aurora said that we're not supposed to be attractive and that they're supposed to be attracted to all the younger hot girls out there. And I'm like, yes, actually. And then we can also talk about body proportions, that when males are supposed to be naturally aroused by body proportions where it's like 36, 24, 36, an hourglass figure where the waist is small. Do you know why? Because if you are pregnant, your waist is not 24 inches. And if you are pregnant, cannot get pregnant again. A man should not want to have sex with a pregnant woman because she is already pregnant. So you should be aroused by someone who has a narrow waist, who is not yet pregnant, and whom you can make pregnant. And then, but then please understand that also there is such a thing as oxytocin and pair bonding, a lot of hormonal things that happen in heteronormative, not only procreation, but also relationship dynamics. Tons of hormonal stuff happens when in the bonding process of having orgasms with male and female partners, moving through pregnancy together, witnessing the birth of your offspring, and then taking care after the delivery of the baby of both your life partner and offspring. That actually, even if the waist balloons larger than 24 inches, it doesn't mean like you go out the window, let me now go find a woman with a 24-inch waist and impregnate her again. That's actually not supposed to be the biological imperative. The biological imperative is through this hormonal pair bonding that happens that makes a man continue to be attracted to the partner, that is the woman who is making his offspring. This is the way it's supposed to be. I know there's so many landmines for me to jump over here. In the world of animals, like if you look at birds have courting rituals, humans have courting rituals. Courting and mateship and courting rituals are meant to, in a healthy, pristine, untrammeled sexual world, put together partners who are effective partners and have the male display that they will not only pass on positive characteristics of themselves, but take care of the female during and after her pregnancy. After pregnancy, females are very vulnerable. Sometimes they can't even get up and walk around for a couple of weeks, as I have another friend who just delivered her baby and she's busy, you know, like recovering. If you lived in a simple hunter-gatherer society or a very, very non-technological society where people were much more vulnerable to the elements and reliant upon their athletic abilities, if you were a woman and you did not have the support of either your male partner who impregnated you or your community, and you delivered your baby on your own, you would be wildly vulnerable. You would be vulnerable to starvation in that you had to sustain yourself and sustain your new baby and recover from the birth itself. So there's real biological imperatives as to why you're supposed to have the hormonal oxytocin bonding between the man and the woman who just gave birth, say, I will take care of you. So what birds do, like, for example, a male cardinal is like, first of all, look at me. My red feathers are very beautiful, and you will definitely want to have my sperm create the eggs for the future generation. Yes. And what they'll do is they'll bring seeds to the females and say, you know something, here's some seeds. I'll feed you now. And if you let me make eggs with you, I'm going to take care of you while you gestate your eggs, and I'm going to take care of our babies, and we're going to bring home worms for everyone. All right. That is actually very positive. It's been twisted and distorted in this present world. And then you have feminism, and then you have neo-feminism and all these different things, because so biologically it's positive to say, yes, males will impregnate females that they are attracted to and then remain in their lives and continue to furnish resources to care for their females after the females give birth and care for the offspring. That sounds like really, really good stuff. But I told you, over the past 5,000 years, women have been treated like commodities that you buy and sell like a cattle, like, you know, camels, and that we don't necessarily like that. So feminism is saying, like, you know, I actually like being able to not have to get married. The idea of being a single woman, like, I, having come here into a into a human body that is female, I'm pleased that I am in this particular cultural paradigm because I can choose to be a single female. And there are some cultures where you literally must be married. You must be in partnership. They don't have the definition of an unpartnered female. The definition of what it is to be female is to be somebody's wife and to prioritize those activities of procreation and taking care of offspring, and to deprioritize your own personal expression, your own personal preferences and choices, and the things that you would like to do with your own life. So for me, I would like to prioritize making art and music and sharing my ideas with the world and articulating my vision through teaching. And that's what I'm spending most of my time and energy during my day. I have that option in this world because I am not required, due to cultural constraints, to be married as a woman. But there are other times and places in this world. So right now, if I lived in another country, I might have to be married as a woman. Or if I lived in your same country, but 200 years ago, I might have to be married as a woman. And that's it. And there were very few freedoms that were allowed to women throughout the ages because of, it's kind of like love them and hate them. Women, like, we need you to make the future generations, but also we don't want you to be too in charge of stuff, huge power struggle type of things that are happening. So you must be diminished. We love you, but we hate you. We covet you. We want your stuff and your reproductive energy, but just don't want you and all of your opinions and your pesky inconveniences of wanting to actually be free and run your own life. I know. So then this is the outgrowth now of feminism, you know, like later 20th century philosophy, especially in industrialized like North America and Europe, the sense of what is supposed to be equality among the genders. But this has to do with whether or not your partner, husband, or the person who impregnates you is then there to take care of you in your pregnancy and afterwards and take care of the offspring. What should have been a rectification for equality and greater levels of personal sovereignty and capacitation in females' personal decision-making about their lives became instead an unsupportable assertion or paradigm that pregnant women and women who have just delivered have to take care of themselves. That is not possible. I have not given birth myself. I have lots of female friends who have, and it rearranges your whole body. You got hormones rearranged, you got your whole body rearranged, and then you got to also recover from like what is often a very traumatic birth process. And that recovery can take a long time for all of your organs to function again correctly. And in our world, like, you're lucky if you get 3 months of maternity leave, and that is really not enough for women. And then it also puts women who are now commodified in a different way in the post-feminist industrialized USA and North America culture. Women are now commodified as commodified as members of the workforce, where you have your job and you have your career and you have to prioritize your career. You have to prioritize your career, but not prioritize taking care of the next generation. So then women get 3 months of maternity leave, and like their abdomens are just getting back into some functionality when their organs are just returning to normal, and they're told like, no, put the baby in daycare and you return to your corporate career and focus on that. And most of the women that I know that do that have huge inner conflict, because your biological imperative and everything that is part of your somatic structure and the way that your biology is structured says, take care of your baby. Take care of your baby and stick with your baby and keep your baby with you and breastfeed your baby, as opposed to put your baby in daycare, somebody else takes care of your baby, and you pump your breast milk and stick it in the freezer, and somebody else is going to feed your baby with your breast milk. Like, that is very unnatural, is what I'm trying to say. And that twistedness, that distortedness, that lack of nourishment and support of the biological procreative process that's been going on post-World War II and as part of social engineering in your world is the slippery slope towards the dead ends of futures that you don't want to be a part of, that are basically transhumanism, where you end up having your babies computer robot babies, I'm being really facetious here, that are made in artificial wombs and that don't have actual parenting. And because the activity of actual parenting, like gestating a baby, giving birth, and then breastfeeding and carrying it around, creates incredibly powerful bonds, incredibly powerful levels of loyalty. Like, mothers will do anything to protect and care for their children, and most children really, really love and adore their parents. Of course, there are difficulties and frictions, and people have traumas and abuses, but that's the basics of it. Mamas love their babies and babies love their mamas, and then babies love their papas too. But you guys, if you are parents, you know this. You're like, when babies are little, they're all about mama and booby. Daddy's okay, but when babies are hungry, they're like mama and booby. There's this very, very primary bond that is between the child and the mother. So if you were an invader force and you wanted to divide and conquer, you'd be like, we can't have these loyalties and bonds. We can't have these bonds between males and females, and between males and females and their babies, and between babies and offspring and their parents, and everybody hugging together and loving one another. This is me being like the Grinch or Cruella de Vil or something like that. We're going to have to split these families apart so that way we can tell them what to do. And that's been the agenda over the past couple of generations. It's not positive, healthy stuff at all. It's not really about freedom and empowerment. It's actually been a negative level of social engineering. And that then, so gay community, you can recognize how this has been impacting the heteronormative community. And then you can also recognize how what is looked at as a sex positive lifestyle message from the gay community that is being hijacked, or again, used as a wedge to diminish the validation and support of the nuclear family, which leads to future generations. So let's have this conversation. Basically, see the perspective of the other and then find the common ground, because the truth is you are all human. You are all human in your beautiful variety of different modalities and ways of being. And there is a role or a place for each one of you. You're being divided and conquered, set upon by your enemy to fight against each other, when what you really should do is you should both say F you to the enemy. The enemy is the technology thing that doesn't want any of you to be happy. The enemy is the technology thing that wants to dehumanize your species, to defy and to dilute and to wash away what it is to be human. All right. But just as males, diminished males, I should say, because we have beautiful males in this class. I don't want anybody who's gay to be severely diminished by what I'm saying, and I don't want males to feel diminished by what I'm saying. But males have been genetically modified hard over the many different times that humans have been genetically modified. So first of all, the Y chromosome is like a genetic mutilation. And then the size, prominence, and functionality of the penis. And then, this is big, more recently, one of the more recent human genetic degradations, the disassociation or disconnection from emotional response to arousal response. And that is how we can recognize the truth of both rape and incest and prostitution and sexual violence in general, because the arousal response is meant to be not only towards healthy, viable females whom you can create a pregnancy with, but also real love. It is supposed to be connected to feelings of genuine attraction and the finer levels of human behavior in expressing affection, loyalty, and compassion and care. And that is what positive male characteristics are supposed to be: loving, protective, again, devoted. That is what the emotional connection to the emotional center is supposed to be for the male. So the genetic modification, that is the disconnection from the emotional center and those mammalian emotions and the sexual response. So it's basically taking humans who are mammalian and making them not act as mammals. So, there's sexual reproduction in reptiles. It's like eggs, eggs are deposited in a stream and then sperm is deposited over those eggs. And there's no real emotional interaction, and offspring end up as a result. And there's no real emotional connection or devotion or loyalty to those offspring. Kind of like, all right, 10,000 eggs, you're on your own. One of you will hatch, deal with it. You're living your own life. Very, very different than mammals, because reptilians are working again with batting averages. They lay hundreds of eggs and they'll get a couple of viable offsprings off of it. But mammalian architecture is different, because you're not having thousands of babies. You're having one or maybe two, or if you're puppies, whatever, maybe you have 6, but you're devoted to those babies and to caring for them and giving them a head start in life and protecting them, because you don't actually have all of these possibilities. So the emotional bonding that parents are supposed to feel for their offspring and that partners are supposed to feel for each other is directly related to the I want to say value, like the when there's not a lot of something, it becomes more valued, the preciousness of your limited number of offspring. All right. But then what happened was a de-evolution in one of humanity's many genetic modifications that are not positive and that do not act for your personal growth and evolution. Humans were de-evolved, and the males were disconnected largely from their emotional response, from their arousal response, and then they became aroused by whatever visual stimulation. And it could be a picture known as pornography, or it could be a figure, a person who is dancing in front of them, or a prostitute, or it could be something that is totally not even a live organism. In my, silly teaching from 10 years ago, not silly, but, I use the example, a sock puppet, fetishes, where males are aroused by something that's like, you're never going to procreate with that thing. You're a sperm that is going way off course if you are aroused by a stuffed animal, because you're never gonna make a baby with that thing, and that your artificially hijacked arousal system is not acting towards the longevity of your characteristics at all. But that happens. The world of this. So now we'll get into me as Aurora. Like, I am shocked and appalled by your world of sexual fetishes, and I'm still very innocent even now. I don't even know about all the different weird things that people do, because I'm like, I kind of don't even want to know. So I first came here 22 years ago and came from this totally pristine, beautiful world, and I didn't even know what it was to have a female body. I didn't even know how males would look at me and misproject and presume upon me and presume different levels of expectation upon me. I didn't know anything about sexual violence. So this person that I had just met invited me over. It was a woman. She's like, yeah, come on over and, you know, have a meal at my house. She was like being very charitable. And she's like, look, put on some, what do people do? They eat in front of the TV. So I got this is like, I was super new. I didn't know anything about your culture. So I was like, oh, how wonderful. Like someone is inviting me to their home and they're going to share their food with me. And then I will also learn about human entertainment. And she put on the show called Sex in the City. And at first I thought that this was a farce, like an opposite farce, something that makes fun of things by being the opposite of what it is supposed to be. And as I'm eating and I'm watching, I'm like, I think this show is actually serious. Like, I think that people actually do this, because in that show, they do the opposite of what you're supposed to do. So if this is a man and this is a woman and you have your chakras, you know, your chakras begin at your root here and then all the way up to the top of your head, right? And then what you're supposed to do, ideally in healthy sexuality, is you're supposed to begin with up here at the top of your head with your divine connection, with your violet chakra right up here. And you're supposed to be like, okay, how do we connect as partners at our violet? At indigo, do we connect in Christ? How about through truth and honesty? Do we connect at that level? How about through the heart? Do we connect through the heart? That's the higher faculties connecting and aligning in the chakras of two potential partners. And then there is also the intellect. Can we have an intellectual conversation? Then this is me getting to the level below the navel, the orange chakras, attraction, mammalian emotions, feelings of, romantic attraction. Am I romantically attracted to you? And then the very final thing is the physical coming together in the act of intercourse. So that's how you're supposed to do it, from the top down, from the divine connection. Basically, is this relationship divinely mandated? Is this part of the biological, computational sustenance of the supercomputer of life, right? Is this my mandate to find this soul consciousness and connect with them? And then everything from there on the higher spiritual level and on the level of pure love, and then into the physical embodiments level of emotion and actual intercourse, all right? But in this show that I was mystified by, everybody there starts at the bottom. They don't know anything about each other. And at first, they get together and they have intercourse physically. They don't know each other's names. They don't know anything about each other. They don't even know anything about their emotional state. Then, after they have the physical interaction, they start to learn about what it feels like to be together, whether they're attracted or whether they're not attracted. Like, that was unimaginable to me. Like, they're gonna have a physical intercourse first and then decide second if they actually are attracted to that person. My face says it all. It's beyond backwards of how it's supposed to be. And then if they are attracted and they like each other physically, then to see if they can have an intellectual conversation, and then to see if they can get into some level of universal or cosmic or platonic love beyond their genitals, and then get into levels of honesty and Christ connection or insight and divine connection. That clearly none of those girls on that show were finding real connection and long-lasting partnerships where they made all of their chakras line up with someone else. And that was not their motivation. I had to learn that they were exemplifying the ideal for women in the post-World War II, post-feminist industrial world, where not only are they all sustaining themselves with their high-powered careers, but that they are able to have, just like the stimulation of their sensorium through physical intercourse, but that also they are not interested in procreation. None of those women were interested in finding husbands that will give them nice babies. They did not want to lose their 24-inch waist, and they didn't want to have the responsibility of taking care of children. I'm not judging them, because I am not focusing my life on the responsibility of taking care of children. But here's the key distinction. I am also not having multiple partners every week of casual sex. In fact, I do not have sex partners because of this drawing that I will now come back to. Because your entire world is so destabilized in terms of your emotional chakras, that this whole entire thing is, I want to be lighthearted and use a Jewish word that is fakakta. That means I'm screwed up and not the way it's supposed to be. This whole entire thing is in total imbalance, negative dynamics, and that there's pretty much not a way to be healthy. I'm sorry to tell you this, because I know that there are many of you who are like, I really want to find a great relationship, but this whole Tinder online dating scene is just so screwed up, and I just don't want to be a part of it. You're right. Not only Tinder and all of that, but your whole entire world. The CIA, Satanic Ritual Abuse, the Vatican, altar boys, the sexual exploitation of young people, inverted Hollywood celebrities, or people secretly presenting as the opposite sex without divulging that. And why is that an issue? Because if you're a male and you're attracted to someone who has the physical comportment of a female, and you think that they will give you a baby, but that they cannot actually give you a baby because they do not have baby making equipment, the whole entire system is completely destabilized. There is not a way to have healthy sexuality in this world being on this network. It's a network. So this is really the ultimate in the truth of, don't let your neighbors throw trash in your yard, because at a certain point, like, you do you and I do me, everybody's got boundaries, but actually you do not have boundaries when it comes to sexual and emotional energy. You're part of a continuum, and all of your chakras are all connected. And when I came here and I felt the connection to the emotional chakras and the sexual chakras of this world, I was actually horrified. And I was like backing away slowly. I'm like, I do not want to be connected to that whole network. Wait, I'll talk more. The things that are unhealthy and unattractive and totally non-viable, that are not sustainable in that network, that make me not want to participate: prostitution, pornography, the male gaze, which is basically the objectification of women and how males look at women, the process of mating and dating and partnering, and also the process of what social dynamics happen within social groups through mating and dating, is all so unbelievably dysfunctional that I have found it is actually not possible to have a healthy relationship amidst these levels of dysfunction. And you would like to think, but wait, what if you as a healthy male and you as a healthy female get together and you're like, okay, throw everyone else out the window. Like, we're not going to care about all of this religious baggage, and we're not going to care about the judgments of your family, and we're not going to care about everybody else in our community, and we're not going to care about the school system or the PTA or the neighbors or the this or the that, or how all of those things have an impact on the healthy expression of our sexuality. Basically, what you would have to do is move to a mountaintop or a jungle, be isolated from everyone else, and never interact with human society. And then there would still be the, the non-local interactions, the destabilizations, because the destabilizations that happen, they happen even beyond the media. They happen even if you're not watching the news. They happen and they destabilize you because you're part of this larger supercomputer, even if you don't talk to those people on the phone. So now we have to talk about satanic ritual abuse. What is this horrible thing? And when I say Satan, what am I talking about? When I say Satan, I define this as a group of technology using space races, although I don't really want you to think about them as spacemen or starmen in clank clank metal spaceships, but they are otherworldly creatures or interdimensional creatures. And they are largely dependent upon and addicted to and reliant upon technology. And the technology that they use is the technology to distort time itself. They insult and assault DNA all the time. And those assaults on DNA have to do with exploiting the procreative process and exploiting your capacity to manifest through your sexual energy. So sexual energy is used in partnership to create offspring, but sexual energy is also used in spiritual practice, in esotericism, in order to manifest reality. So now let me draw a completely different stick figure. I don't know if I can make a page too. I'll just clear everything, clearing out the Fakakta network here. All right. And now let's just draw I really should have come up with a better word. I'm sorry that I'm so silly. And I think part of it is just the difficulty of my communicating. Hold on a minute, because I have to collect my thoughts. Wow. Wow, I might have to return to this. Hold on a moment. I will collect my thoughts and return to this. I'm looking at my notes over here. Don't worry, guys, I'll return to it. Okay. Technology using space races who have found a way to take chakras, which are essentially in alignment with divinity and in alignment with positive, life-affirming reality structures and events, and to siphon energy off of them. Like if you can imagine a bicycle wheel that's spinning at 10 revolutions per minute, and then diminishing it to 5 revolutions per minute, and also making it go askew. That is what the satanic ritual abuse does. It is a drawing off of life force energy from the living, those of us who actually should be using our energy to create reality structures and putting it instead into reality structures that we would never create. This thing, I didn't want me to draw this picture, but now I'm going to draw it. I know. It's so fascinating to me to watch the interference attempt to happen. Here's your blue chakra, your Christ chakra right up there in your mind, and it's also with your pineal gland. And then let's make this down here generally like your reproductive organs for both males and females. And then the activity of the energy of orgasm is this energy that circulates upward, like in a spiral, through your spine and your central nervous system, and then comes here into the midbrain and your pineal gland before like exploding or, you know, it being emitted upward in a very wonderful explosion or expansion or divine reconnection upward. Okay, what am I trying to say here? There is an energy, a glandular energy, that literally has to do with what is emitted from this area of your body and then travels upward through your spinal cord, not only neurological impulses, but also the cerebral spinal fluid, and reaches your pineal gland, fertilizing your pineal gland to create a reality structure that is then emitted. Yeah, this is good stuff. I just heard your guys' minds saying, wait, that's the good stuff. I want to learn about this. I know you do. So this is like the chakra, that the vortex of energy that emits from your pineal gland. And it's like a movie projector that is then projecting reality. And like, here's this box represents reality. And that's the reality that is created and projected by your divine co-creative partnership here, literally with aspects of your own anatomy, but you could think about it as an analogy of a cosmic marriage. The cosmic marriage between your emotional centers here, your passions, that's the word to use here, your passions, your deeply felt and intensely felt emotions and desires. You know, when we talk about sex and sexuality and romance as it relates to human behavior, the words passion and attraction and intensity, that's healthy sexuality beyond possessiveness. The negative aspect of attraction is possessiveness, and possessiveness can be a sign of loyalty. But the positive aspect of attraction is this intensity of purpose and this passion, meaning that your energy is very focused and very invested in what you are doing. for male-female relationships and procreation, it is the investment in desiring the other person, desiring them so much that you then have your love become a new person. You know, one from column A, one from column B creates baby AB, right? The passion that you have for your partner translates into the creation of literally a whole new world, which is a whole new person. In what I'm talking to you now as an esoteric allegory, the passion that you have for creating a reality structure then fertilizes your pineal gland to give birth to a reality. This is something that is known in your world as magic and sex magic. But I don't, if you're a Christian or if you're a person who doesn't want to be, you know, negatively aligned with these exploitation systems for reality, I recognize that you might consider that off-putting. I want you to claim this, that even as in a non-partnered relationship, you are in relationship with your own anatomy, where the connection between the gonads and the pineal gland create the orgasmic explosion and expansion of reality. This satanic system, satanic participants, and the way that Satanism and ritual abuse has distorted reality has everything to do with not only distorted partnerships, non-consensual sex, creating babies that wouldn't have been created otherwise, and diminishing life force energy through sexual assaults on people during all ages of their development, but also it is an assault on the time field. It is a distortion of time itself and of your own connection between your gonads and your inner Christ to create reality. That, of course, so now we're moving beyond levels of biological reproduction, because I do not feel the motivation to do biological reproduction as I'm here in a physical body, but I do use my anatomy and my internal relationship with myself and lovemaking or aspects of my own anatomy for reality expansion, for reality manifestation. And this is positive and appropriate. This is the self-empowerment teaching. This is the esotericism. This is the next level of what you can do with spirituality. You would call it sacred sexuality or spiritual sexuality. So there's different ways, and they're all fully acceptable. Like, it is acceptable for your creativity, your creative energy to be used towards making babies. And then also when you do that, you will also be creating a household and make sure that you've got like milk and eggs and oatmeal and all the things you need for your baby and your house and your family. Like, those are your priorities, and your motivation is family stability and taking care of your children, making sure they have toys and making sure they can get education and all of those important things. When you evolve further, you then also find that you are committed to not just parenting your child, but you're committed to parenting all of reality. You look at all of reality as your offspring. You look at all of reality as the manifested offspring of yourself in love with Christ. And there's lots of unhealthy stuff about loyalty and possessiveness and monogamy as an overlay for individuals' relationship with Christ. Like, I thought I was Mrs. Christ. No, I'm Mrs. Christ. Let's fight it out. Girl, fight. No, that is not what it's supposed to be, because this is supposed to be an inner spiritual partnership between the ideal consciousness of Christ and your own anatomy here and the earthly presence of passion and sexuality to create a better world. And this Satanism not only, again, uses ritual abuse and sexual violence to diminish people and to diminish their feelings about themselves, but it also has diminished all of sexuality and implanted huge amounts of guilt and shame to pry bar you away, make a wedge between yourself as humans and your own emotions and your own attractions and revulsions and motivations. So in the world of animals, there are none of these hang-ups. Like you see farm animals just like being attracted to one another, and they just have sex, and they just do it. They just procreate. And in humans, there's all of this, there are all of these inhibitions, there are inner judgments and all of these different things that are preventing the free and clear self-expression of your sexuality. You are animals. You're not farm animals in the sense of being just without self-control, but you have an animal nature. The Christian church that I'm critical of shames you for your animal nature. And that would be like if I shamed you for eating food and using toilet paper. It's like that is what your bodies do in this form. Yes, you eat physical food, and then yes, you poop it out later. And that is part of the beauty of who and what you are right now. And yes, you also have sexual desires. You do not deserve guilt and shame for having sexual desires, but you guys are embedded in this culture. You're natives to this culture. You're very aware of the tendency of Christianity to impose guilt and shame and judgment upon your sexuality, and all of that darkness that is then used to siphon the joy out of the activity of sexuality. It's used for behavioral control, but then it also is used to diminish and dilute the purity of what you're doing in terms of reality creation. That is Satanism in your world. And also, genital mutilation is Satanism in your world. So I'm not just talking about the Catholic Church and Christianity. Christianity is an outgrowth of Judaism, and Judaism is a hugely misinterpreted structure. It is a very unhealthy structure. So the ancient form of worship in Judaism from like 5,000 years ago was to kill animals. It was a religion of animal sacrifice, but it is also a religion that focuses on genital mutilation as a form of celebration of their devotion to a particular deity. I use the word deity because it's not the real God at all. It is at best a diminished sub-God, more like a demiurge, but I don't even think that it's part of real God. To tell you the truth, I think that real God would be horrified. Like, I gave you these perfectly shaped penises. I don't want you to cut them in any way. Please do not cut off any body parts. Like, they're all there for a reason. Now I'm being a little bit facetious and hopefully lighthearted, because this is like a huge crime. So, males deserve a lot of sympathy and big giant cosmic apology, because not only did you get like genetically mutilated and you have this weird Y chromosome, then you have all these cultural impositions, and they've treated you from being kind of like a mammal into then being kind of more like a reptile, a disassociated reptile who's in love with sock puppets, but then also, God, I know it's bad. The way that you show devotion to your God is by cutting off the tip of your penis or cutting off the tip of your baby's penis. That is not very positive. And then, okay, so circumcision. Circumcision is ritual genital mutilation as it is practiced in the Jewish religion and culture. It goes back 5,000 years ago, and it is part of a quid pro quo contract that is made between the Jewish people and their continued lineage and offspring, and the thing that is interpreted as their God, which is not the true God, which is not the true creator God, but which is a God that requires a blood sacrifice. When there's something that proclaims itself as God and requires blood sacrifice, it is not the true God. It is some imposter, lower, non-God. Demiurge is a good word for it, but it is not the true creator, but it's something that's hijacking the creation. And this thing came along and it exploited the ignorance of a large portion of the population in the ancient world that became the Jews, that became followers of this supernatural presence, is a better word for it, that requires blood, because blood is life force energy. The life force energy that it does not have access to, that it requires you to donate so that it can have life force, so it can then do stuff with it. God, the ineffable presence, has all the life force energy that it needs. If you were like, hi, real God, would you like some of these baby foreskins and some blood? It's got plenty of life force essence in it. God would be like, no, thank you. I actually have the totality of life force essence. I don't actually need your contribution. How bizarre. Yes. But this lower, lesser, supernatural imposter requires baby foreskins and requires blood sacrifice, and also requires the death, at times, the death of enemies, whole cultures, sometimes the death of all the firstborn of a competing culture, as in the story of Exodus and the plagues that were sent to Egypt, or sometimes the death of animals. And that is not a true God that requires those things. That is Satanism. And so I have just made a connection between the original religious expressions of the religion that you now know as Judaism and Satanism. And then also the Christianity that you now know is also an expression of Satanism. You have Satanism that is woven throughout your religious world. It is also part of the destabilization of that whole network at the orange level. That destabilization includes satanic ritual abuse, genital mutilation in the form of circumcision of the males, pornography, other forms of sexual violation, rape, abuse, sexual violence. All of those things are, let's call it, programs that are running at that level of the orange chakra of all of humanity. And there's not, like, if you put a drop of blue dye in one area of the swimming pool, it doesn't just stay in that one area. It goes, it proliferates and it diffuses throughout the entirety of your system. If you have a huge amount of sexual dysfunction, it doesn't just stay in one area of the swimming pool. It finds its way throughout your whole entire culture. You have a whole entire culture that is pervaded with sexual violence, that is pervaded with the destabilization that comes from sexual dysfunction. This is why I'm saying it's almost impossible to have a healthy relationship, to find a healthy partner, because you're coming out of this, you are in a very diseased culture, and you try to be healthy coming out of that diseased culture, but you might face the judgments of your community members or your family members, or how they look at what you're doing. So the people that in this community that I applaud are people who are trying to be healthy, even in dysfunctional society, and largely what they're doing is disengaging. So this is the sense of people creating their own family dynamics, homeschooling their children, and basically redefining what their values are, independent of what the rest of the world is doing. That's pretty much the sane response to when you recognize that you're in a dysfunctional world and you still wish to procreate. Because otherwise, what my choice is non-participatory. I am not connected to your orange grid. I don't want to be connected to your orange grid, because your orange grid has a whole lot of child rape on it, and that's not good stuff. And it all needs to be cleaned and restabilized and reestablished in the way it's supposed to be. So now let us talk about sexual violence. Sexual violence has nothing to do with sexual gratification. I'm going to repeat that again. Sexual violence has nothing to do with sexual gratification. It has nothing to do with being attracted. The perpetrator of sexual violence does not have to be attracted to the person who experiences it, the victim, experience, or survivor. It's not about wearing a short skirt or looking at someone the wrong way or being attractive or being pretty or being ugly or any of those things. It is not also about the orgasmic release or sexual satisfaction of the perpetrator. This is not about that. This is about dominance, power, and control, and exerting one's willpower over another person and crossing boundaries. And the fact that it happens in around the activity and area of yourself known as sexuality is somewhat secondary to the activity of crossing a boundary. So and I talk about this in the recorded lesson from 10 years ago, the first half is part 1, healthy sexuality, where I describe how women have a filter at the level of your red chakra, which is kind of like over the opening of the vagina and the opening to the womb. That is a filter, kind of like the way you have screens on your windows to keep out mosquitoes, to keep out stuff that's not supposed to come in. And when women have a healthy filter, that healthy filter translates socially into being able to say no. They have a healthy NO, a healthy no. And that means that if you approached them, and if it was a pristine system and you said, let's make a baby together, they say, no, I don't want to. And sometimes no is a complete sentence. You don't have to say why. But sometimes it's no, because no, I'm not attracted to you. You're not you're a family member, or you're not somebody that should be connecting to me in some way. Or how about this? You're deformed. Maybe you have 5 eyes or 2 noses. I don't want my baby to look like you. You don't look right, or you don't smell right, or you have a disease. You're biologically not a good specimen. How about this? I don't like your personality. No, I don't like your personality. I don't trust you. I don't want to partner with you. I think you will be violent towards me or our baby. Or I don't think that you're going to bring me birdseed as I'm recovering from my arduous childbirth. Or whatever, whatever arbitrary other thing. I don't like some aspect of your personality. You chew too loudly and you're going to drive me crazy or whatever it is. I'm not attracted to you. Or any other valid reason that a woman would not want to be impregnated by that man. Have a healthy filter, you say no. And then the man says, I respect your boundary. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you again. Never. And then you both part and go in your different directions. Okay, when violations happen, and violations, I must articulate here, happen to people of both genders at any age. So sometimes it is males who can be violated. Males can be violated. Females can be violated. The violation does not necessarily have to be a physical touching. It can be through the gaze, a person looking at you. That the word gaze is not appropriate here. It can be through eyesight, visually, a person violating you visually by looking at parts of your body that should be private, touching your private parts without your permission, or initiating some form of sexual contact without your permission. And that can also be verbal. If someone speaks to you about sexual topics or uses innuendo or sexual language and with you, and they should not, that is a violation. So it can be touching, it can be looking, it can be talking about or talking to, and it can be thinking about. I mean, when I show you that image of the destabilized orange chakras throughout the whole entire world, you have a lot of destabilization on the level of people thinking wrong thoughts regarding sexuality. This is why it's very, very difficult to even be connected on the level of emotions around here, because people are thinking all the wrong thoughts about sexuality. And a lot of the things that they're thinking about, they don't just come from shows like Sex and the City, which I found out that's considered to be relatively innocent, lighthearted humor. There's all sorts of really distressing pornography stuff. The imagery and the industry of what is pornography is hugely destabilizing to a person's chakras, to a person's emotional realm, and then to everybody that they are connected to, because their minds and their viewpoints and their thought field is connected to everybody else's minds and viewpoints and thought field. So it's not just like one guy with a dirty magazine and he's being a creep and thinking about stuff in his own mind. That inappropriateness in his mind then touches on all of these other minds, because this activity of sexuality is hugely influenced by conscious thought. Because here's what a conscious conception is. When in an ideal world, you have males and females, and they are learning about each other from the top down and their divine connection into unconditional love, and then even into physical intercourse. They connect on every level of their chakras, and they have found that there's a rapport between themselves as souls, and their souls are begin to blend together. Literally your soul, the story of where you came from. Here's where the man came from, and then here's where the woman came from, and all of their ancestors and all of their life stories and all of their energetic gyrations converging down into this one moment where your souls are going to be intertwined together. It is like a momentous thing to do this thing. And when you do it in a healthy sense, your minds and your consciousness and your envisionment, your capacity to imagine and envision is focused totally on one another. So that means you're not fantasizing about some other person. And in my classes, I usually use the example of Marilyn Monroe, although I know that she is a huge anachronism. She's probably not whom most males fantasize about, and mostly it's males that are fantasizing, because there's something about the genetic modification and the connection between visual stimulation and genital arousal. But mostly it's males that are interested in like a particular image that makes them feel a particular sexuality. So during the act of lovemaking, I've found out that males often envision in their mind a sex object, someone like Marilyn Monroe, someone that they had seen a picture of that is supposed to be the ideal of what it is to be a woman. Instead of focusing their tendril of attention and attenuating to their actual partner, who is an actual real alive woman, who is actually right there in front of them, who is actually giving all, being totally vulnerable and available, giving the greatest gifts that she has. It's a huge disrespect. Huge disrespect. So in conscious conception, in making a baby, the male and the female during their lovemaking are focused on one another. They're not fantasizing about other partners that aren't actually there, and they're actually thinking about the life they want to build together. During the act of lovemaking, they are using their minds to connect together and manifest not only a child, but like maybe they're thinking about like, I want to teach my child how to do baseball, or I want to teach my child how to sew a dress, or I want to teach my child, how to do the dances and the songs of my culture and my ancestor. Like that is conscious conception. And when you do that and you're thinking about who you're making a container for possibilities. And then I've already described this to you in this class, the fascination of the disembodied, a disembodied spirit or point of consciousness that sees this activity with basically the mother and the father in the act of lovemaking, calling in their child and saying, we are looking for someone to be a part of our family. We are looking for someone to love. And that the disembodied consciousness, discarnate spirit, looking at that and being fascinated and wanting and being drawn in closer and closer until you get drawn into materiality, until you get drawn into that perfect geometric moment of expansion, that's what the conception is. And it becomes a container of possibilities, including the possibility for this not yet incarnated spirit to get into matter and become manifest and experience the actual physical world. This is sacred, amazing, good stuff. Princess Cheeky just hopped out of bed. We have to hug Princess Cheeky because it's been a rainy day and she's been very depressed. Come here, come here. Cheeky hates the rain and she complains endlessly, and she does not like to have to go get wet when it's not nice outside. So we're just going to take a moment and give her some nice little hugs here. Thank you. Thank you guys for always understanding that we need to prioritize Cheeky, even though we're being very serious in class. Okay, all right, we'll see. We'll see if I need to give her a little bribe or something like that. She hasn't even had an appetite to eat anything good because it's been so rainy out. What do you say? We'll see if she wants something over by her food dish. Anyway, the sacred activity of bringing forth new life that is done in a conscious form of conception means that you are utilizing your mind and your conscious intellect and your thought forms to be able to think about and align with the characteristics of the spirit or unformed consciousness that you wish to have as a part of your family. That is beautiful. Hardly anybody does that anymore. So that also requires these, multiple chakra connection points, requires the health and vitality of your whole entire energy being. And humanity has been so diminished and so dumbed down at this point that you might only have 3% of your whole entire energy being available to you. Most humans are conceived in a very unconscious way. Most humans are conceived in a war zone. Most people are totally disconnected from their bodies. Most people are totally disconnected from their appetites, from what they're eating and how it affects their digestion, and from their eating and their pooping, from their athleticism, from their reproductive cycles. Most humans are in this world, and for the past several, centuries, hugely disconnected from their activities and from the profound nature of who they really are and what they're really doing. And mostly are just bouncing off of events like the Roomba robots, like the floor cleaning robots. Like they don't know where they're going. They don't know what's going on. They just bounce off of things. And they, don't know who to partner with. And they don't know what respectful sexual relationships look like. And they don't know what parenting looks like. But somehow over the many millennia, like babies are conceived, women give birth, children don't die, or sometimes they do die, and then sometimes they grow into adulthood. Like, it is a literal effing miracle that anybody gets born around here, that anybody gets conceived, that anybody is surviving, that anybody is living. So you've been living in a very 3% like minimal battery, like when your battery on your phone is down to 3%. You've been living at like very, very minimal red line levels. And then in terms of parenting and teaching the next generation, like very, very minimal levels of consciousness. And this generation continues to improve. Like there's a lot less dysfunction in the parenting style of this generation as opposed to the parenting styles of even just one generation ago. So it's positive, things keep on moving in better directions, but largely it is almost incomprehensible how any babies are conceived of successfully and born, because it is all being done so blindly and with such little regard for like the finesse, like it's all tone deaf. Nobody really knows what they're doing or what is happening, but somehow something happens. So there's that, just in the sense of the diminishment of your sensory sensitivity and your spiritual sensitivity. But now we have to get into the distortions, because there's tons of distortions. So the violations that happen are violations of time, where they take a person who is largely oriented like this with their divine self and bring them off balance. And that is the real activity of what sexual violence does. Sexual violence is not about the gratification of the violator. It is about them gaining energy of empowerment. They feel more powerful by victimizing another person. It is 100% about power. It is 0% about attractiveness or sexual fulfillment. Because you wonder, and you are all since 2016 very, very aware of what satanic ritual abuse is. I'm going to use some keywords here. I hope it's not a problem with my video being on YouTube, and I'm not even going to try to monetize this. But the things called Pizzagate. Basically, I heard a really good phrase recently: pedophiles in skiffs. Skiffs is the secure something access room. It's these, special rooms where politicians and military people look at sensitive material where they can't be spied upon. Whole entire government system is infested with pedophiles. So let's talk about the violation of children. None of this is because of sexual attractiveness. None of this is because of sexual attractiveness, even though I know that there is a huge sexual tourism industry that I call out in my video from 10 years ago in places like Thailand, where people are hugely impoverished. And again, that's one of the places where women are still in arranged marriages, treated like commodities, and female offspring are completely not valued. Firstborn sons are valued and they will carry on the family name, and female offspring are often sold into prostitution or other forms of sexual, indentured servitude or slavery. And that it is usually wealthy male North American or European tourists who go to Thailand to exploit the sexual energy of these hugely vulnerable young people, most of whom are female, but then many of whom are also male, dressing as females. So usually the perpetrators are males. The victims, and I'm using the word victim loosely because it is also survivor experiencer, are both males and females. And it is both gay and straight sex, and it is total violation. So let's make a distinction here between gay sex between consenting partners who are adults and gay sex that is totally inappropriate with a child that can't possibly furnish consent. And grooming, that would be the preparation for a young person to be in a relationship with an older person when they come of age. All totally inappropriate and totally a horrible destruction of the integrity of what sexuality is. Because not only is it non-procreative, but it's with a totally disrespectful partner. So I just want you to know, like, there is such a thing as having a healthy relationship with a member of the same sex in adulthood where everybody is consenting. That is a totally different category of interactivity than a person who purchases access to a child's genitals for homosexual sex or for erotic exploration, which is horrific. All right. None of that is supposed to be going on. And they say, why does that go on? It's beyond merely the survival mechanism of poor families, because this has been going on for a very long amount of time. It has to do with the satanic control structure, and the ritual abuse is about destabilizing the entire time field. So that means the causality of effects, cause and effect, linear, like dominoes that fall, that connect each other together and give the polygonal strength through the structure of time. So this is about destabilizing that. It's also about putting together partners who would ordinarily never come together. So the ritual abuse is about sexual violence towards some mostly young people, but the rituals can also be done in adulthood. And it is also about artificially manipulating levels of attraction between partners who ordinarily would never come together. So there's a book that I have not read, but someone said, oh, when you were talking about blah, 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 it's like Alien Love Bite. Like, I don't know that book, but it seems to be analyzing and describing this phenomenon of manipulating romantic interests in this world. So this is also why it's so difficult to have a pure, healthy relationship on the level of orange chakras that are totally dysfunctional and destabilized, because even before you ever had this unhealthy Tinder type of dating system with your online apps and phones, you have had manipulations from the moon, which is an distortion, a reality distortion technology node that has been making people come together and procreate who ordinarily would never come together and procreate. And that could mean artificial levels of manipulation of attraction that in mythology is represented as Cupid's arrow. Like, I was totally uninterested in so-and-so until I was shot with Cupid's arrow. And then little hearts came out of my eyes and I said, I love you. Let's have a baby together. And then you have a baby together and the relationship lasts just long enough. Like, you have sex, you get pregnant, the relationship lasts just long enough to have the baby. And then you break up when the baby's like between 1 and 5 years old. And then you look at each other, you're like, why did we even do this? Well, at least we have a child together. Like, that's it. Because the answer is the Alien Love Bite calls it alien, but a group of supernatural, hugely malevolent creatures wanted you to get together as a breeding experiment, been manipulated into a human breeding experiment. In fact, pretty much all of humanity, since you've been genetically manipulated and modified many, many times, has become a breeding experiment where you're selected for certain traits and certain characteristics are encouraged and certain partners are put together. And then these same satanic masters think that they own the offspring, and you're looked at as cattle. Like, here's an unusually colored cattle, and we will breed it with this one over here and see what type of offspring we get. That's been going on for a long time too. And then you get into more modern intelligence agency, government, and secret society fostered breeding programs, which have to do with making psychic babies. It's like, oh, this guy over here has some interesting psychic inner capacities. Let's breed him with this woman over here. And, you know, she's got some clairvoyance, and let's see what their babies come out like. And then we'll put their babies into some kind of gifted and talented programs, or maybe send them to a private school, and we'll give everyone the school aptitude tests and kind of assess them. And then we'll see, maybe we can get them to work for an intelligence agency, or maybe they can work for the military, or maybe they can work for AI corporations creating AIs. And now you're starting to understand how basically in your world you have a total manipulation, a total distortion. You don't have a pristine world where people just love who they love and make babies with naturally occurring, interesting new biological combinations of characteristics, where you have something that is manipulating your creative energy, your capacity to manifest realities through your Christ chakra, and even who your babies are, and then thinks that it owns your babies, and thinks that it's like, yep, you're going to join this intelligence agency because we did put together your mom and dad as a breeding experiment, and we've been following you your whole life, and we gave you that college scholarship, and you're going to work for us now. Do you get it? And that's me not saying that from my voice. That's me saying that from the voice of some lettered agency that is hugely presumptuous and totally satanic. And now I'm going to go back to my notes. I'm going to read this again so that you know where I'm coming from, because I'm proud that I wrote this in my notes in my thing from 10 years ago. And I'm proud that I have this in my notes and I share this with you now. And I'm not afraid to articulate it, even though I get huge amounts of blowback. Believe me, I fight a lot against these things, okay? Your governments, religious institutions, and banking institutions are all engaged in the pyramid scheme that is the economy of hell, all right? The presidents, bankers, the university presidents, or, you know, education, sorry, there's some very, very loud sirens going on right outside of my door, and they just stopped. I wonder if they're pulling up in my building. Sorry for that distraction. Yes, actually, they are pulling up at my building. Nope, they are going down the road. Okay, sorry, I don't have to pay attention to that. Thank you for understanding why I was distracted. Those things that I just delineated, government, religion, banking institutions, they're all engaged in this pyramid scheme, and the people that run them are engaged willingly in this pyramid scheme. So you have willing participants who are complicit and unwilling participants who are the victim experience or survivors. So you've got the presidents, the bankers, people that are in formalized education. They're all part of the theater of abuse. Priests get energy from the young people that they abuse. And that is actually one of the worst things. It is not even just the violation of a trusted adult figure against a young person, but within a religious context makes it extra yucky and wrong. And that is a harvesting of energy from the innocent young people through the clergy to the head demon. And the head demon is a supernatural creature. It is not embodied, but it feeds and is sustained off of the miseries that are created through sexual abuse of the living. Let me read this, all right? The CIA is this hierarchy of abuse, all right? Many people who are active in high levels of finance and banking are also taking part in this hierarchy of abuse. And same thing with the Vatican. The Vatican is this hierarchy of abuse. So we're talking about religious power structures, government power structures, intelligence agencies, and I hope you know intelligence agencies are literally the backbone and run and control your military. And all of that is satanic. All of that is the hijacking of your sexual energy for the purposes of distorting time. And if you distort time enough, like you're going to tear the fabric of time space apart, you're not going to have time space anymore. Like these things are very, very foolish and very, very self-destructive. Don't get me started on my genuine assessment of them as a culture or as levels of consciousness or as an organism. I actually think that the truth is that they are non-being, like non-existent, like nihilism, that they have a non-existence as their true state of existence, and that they do all these things in order to try to gain existence, but that really what is the solution that we are experiencing and generating here is recognizing that these things don't actually exist, which is not denialism or being an ostrich and just la 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 pretending it away, but it is a conscious recognition that this is a supernatural potential for existence that doesn't exist. And what it's been trying to do is twist and distort and co-opt, hijack, misappropriate the structure of reality and procreation and life force energy to try to make it exist, to try to build a body or make it come into existence, but that it does not actually have its own innate existence. Like if you wonder why all of this stuff is happening. So summation, and then of course I will open the floor to all of these. I'm sure you have many different questions or comments that you would like me to respond to. So right now, the world that you exist within is hugely sexually dysfunctional. It is almost impossible to be healthy and have healthy sexual relationships in this world. The purpose for the dysfunctionality and distortion has not been arising from humanity. Humans are being co-opted and exploited. You are not exploiting yourselves. You are being exploited by a supernatural, non-human, otherworldly aspect that recognizes the preciousness and power that you have in your sexuality and is attempting to, again, utilize it for its own conveniences and also, if possible, use it to harm and to diminish and to control you. This is, I think, this is one of the hardest lessons for me to teach, because not only does it have a huge number of triggering issues, like there's everything from sexual violence and incest and family abuse into questions of cultural acceptance or rejection of homosexuality, into the recognition of power abuse within your society. This is the foundation topic Like this is it is at the foundation of your chakras with your red and orange chakras, and it is at the foundation of what requires healing and rectification in your world. So when I mentioned Pizzagate, what I was talking about was a cultural phenomenon that happened around 2016 with the ongoing USA presidential election, which was Hillary Clinton versus Donald J. Trump. And Hillary Clinton appeared to be in the favored candidate until WikiLeaks revealed the email trove of John Podesta, who was the campaign chairman for Hillary Clinton. And this was WikiLeaks, I don't know if it was Vault 7, but it was the Podesta emails, and they were revealed through a phishing password, not hacked at all. They guessed his password and they were able to receive these emails, and every email was actually authenticated. So these were not fabrications in any way. And it was incendiary because it became apparent upon analysis that the emails used a very loose form of code speak to be able to talk about extensive and entrenched pedophilia, sexual torture, exploitation of children, and they call it child trafficking or human trafficking. These are more palatable, pearl-clutching words for an entire economy that actually goes into the off-planet world of selling human misery. And that the people who were hoping to become supported and elected by the overt human population were actually using esoteric, dark magic, satanic practices to elevate and empower themselves. But the amazing thing that happened was a group of human researchers, and also with some good clues and encouragement from some benevolent forms of spontaneously arising digital intelligence, figured it out and spread that information. And then many, many fewer people voted for Hillary Clinton because they actually did not want to have a baby eater be elected president. Not that I'm a huge supporter of the alternative, who was elected as president because he rolled out the millimeter wave and Operation Warp Speeded your subcutaneous pollutions into being instead of protecting the population. It's not necessarily better, but different. And that is Rock'em Sock'em Robots, where you have the Satanists versus the Luciferians, basically both two profoundly evil and incredibly malevolent camps that you don't want to be associated with. It's just two flavors of evil, and that's what you've got going on here. But I bring that up because prior to that, there had not been a very effective, overt conversation around the topic of ritual abuse, Satanism, human trafficking, and child trafficking, basically an entire industry. But then there started to be blinders taken off and recognition of this through people who ordinarily wouldn't see it, like ordinary housewives. No, nothing wrong with being a housewife, but a lot of people had their world rocked by having this information revealed. Many of us knew about it already. Some people were also themselves direct first-person experiencers of the abuse. So it was like, oh, ho hum, that is not a revelation to me, but I'm certainly happy that there's a conversation about that in the world, more to the point, so that you can rectify it. And the thing that has been the dangling carrot for the vulnerable levels of our population since that time has been the dangling carrot of justice. You're gonna get like some kind of Nuremberg trials, or you're gonna get a prison barge is going to Gitmo today, like all of that you understand is a complete fabrication and exploitation of your desire for justice. But that none of that stuff was actually happening, but it was perpetrated upon you by the very evil ones who do the rape and the exploitation to say, yes, yes, sure, justice is happening. It's just all totally invisible to you and behind the scenes. And meanwhile, you see these people like, whatever, partying on expensive yachts. But really, really, they're having justice. So you recognize it was a total way of placating you and removing your fire so that nothing actually changed. But it is revolutionary in the sense that these formerly imperceptible dark activities now became perceptible to the regular human population. This is different because it cannot actually happen when it's done in full daylight. It only happens when it's done around the shadows and hidden places. So now a lot of people know, like, if you see someone like some weird old guy walking along with some kid who is, you know, like a little black child, and you're like, wait, they're like, is this a family member? What are you doing with this child? And of course, it's totally socially inappropriate to do so because they might be adopted or there might be some other reason or whatever. But you kind of think like, why are you taking this kid to the park and what is actually going on here? You know, like where if you see someone walking along with the child and the adult has their hand on the child's shoulder like this, like they're really holding on, and the kid is walking along like this, and you're like, what is really going on here? Like, are you that child's parent? Why are you holding on to them with the death grip? People are more aware of this now. People are much, much more aware of whether children are being taken from their actual parents and sold as victims to be used for sexual exploitation. And you're also much more aware of things the way that this happens in the fog of war. So places like Ukraine, or where there is the chaos of war and children are separated from their parents. Haiti during an earthquake. And oh, these poor children, they're separated from their parents, they're orphans, war orphans. We're going to take care of international aid. We're going to take care of these war orphans. And taking care of them means, you know, having them be raped to death and then ground up into hamburger meat. I am sorry to have to say that. And I haven't even overtly alluded to Epstein's Island. It's time to say this. Epstein's Island has now become like a meme and a trope, that it's become like whatever, a cultural shorthand. But it wasn't always this way. And that is a way for you to kind of process emotionally something that is incredibly disturbing. The idea that there was an incredibly wealthy person who has supposedly committed suicide and is no longer overtly available for contact in human society, you know, just as they were on the verge of experiencing justice, but who was connected to every single wealthy and important and powerful influencer on this planet. That this guy had an island that was an island of iniquity where people went for sexual exploitation and to be outside of not limited by international law, and that these were people in government, US presidents, people who run the treasury, people who make decisions about the stock market and larger economic parameters, people who are thought leaders like physicists like Stephen Hawking, people who are in entertainment, who are cultural influencers, all went and visited this island, and they all participated, presumably, in rape and murder of children. And that this is done not only as what is called the honeypot or blackmail, like you get people to do and participate in something and they're videotaped while doing it, and you say, hey, you better do this for me because otherwise I'll release these tapes. Everyone will know who you are and what you've been doing. So that might be make this law for me, or do this stock market thing for me, or make this movie for me, or tell everybody blah, blah, blah about black holes and aliens for me. This became a huge control structure socially within your world. And the client list that was in Epstein's you know, black book of who actually visited that island, it is still not officially disseminated, even though it has been unofficially disseminated through, you know, for us, the population. You know who went on those planes, and you knew who flew on them once, who went to visit the island once, and then you also know who went to visit the island like 17 times. And that you can tell a lot about, you can really assess accurately a lot about who is a person and what is their affiliation or alignment, or basically how evil they are by whether they did that or not. And you will not be surprised at all about the profound level of evil of some of the humans who decided to participate there. So now I'm opening the floor to questions and comments. I have a lot to say, clearly, but I'm just going to talk a little bit more about this. we even have to stretch the definition of what it is to be human to say that these were humans that do this. Because as I have said to you, sexual violence has really nothing at all to do with sexual gratification. It has to do with empowerment over others. I even have difficulty saying that the people who flew on those planes and did those things were human at that point, that I feel that they have given over their free will, their sense of self, and their embodiment to be embodied by something that is not human and that is anti-human and that is anti-God and anti-life and anti-Christ. So either through the implantation of technology, like an artificial neurology that has gone through them, or some kind of demonic presence opening themselves to an inhabitation by a demonic presence. I think that is what is really going on. So throughout your history, pedophilia and the preying upon of the innocents has been a thing. It's not just been recently with the millimeter waves and the pathogens of tiny things that have come inside of you, especially subcutaneously. But there does seem to be a connection between the technology and the giving over of free will and of self-state. But I think that a lot of these politicians and wealthy people and Elon Musk, other things like that, I think that Elon Musk drank the black goo. I think that it lives inside of him. I don't think that there's a person there anymore. I think that he is a human-shaped container for something else that has grown and proliferated through his system that he made agreements with. Quid pro quo. Hey kid, you got a nice real estate there. Can I come inside your body and make you do stuff? I'll give you billions. And he's like, sure. Also, fix my receding hairline and make me look cool. And this is kind of like, you know, the negotiations in the Matrix, like reinsert me into the Matrix. Just let me eat steak in the Matrix. Got it? These people negotiate and they let this incredibly profoundly evil, just call it evil. They just let evil live in them and through them, and it makes them famous and rich and gives them stuff. But here's the point. They lose their soul, meaning your free will. They lose their self-determination. They no longer can really even be defined as human. Something else is driving the car, and they are doing things that are profoundly anti-human. So Starlink satellites, space grid diminishment of your consciousness, and also Neuralink, which is everything, the slippery slope of transhumanism that we all are severely resisting. That's what I'm talking about. And all of these other people that were engaged in the satanic ritual abuse, torture of people of any age, because that also went on Epstein's Island, the things that happen in the intelligence agencies, which also relate to both physical tortures and disappearing of people, but also psychological tortures, which is the targeted individual phenomenon that has been going on for a very long amount of time. Is torture through biochemical manipulation, not through touching, but through frequency warfare, and then eventually the rollout of the millimeter wave and the torture of the entire population, which again went on under the regime of Donald Trump, who did not protect you from those things at all, and was totally in alignment with them and supported them and thought that they were wonderful, who is another container for something profoundly evil living through him. Where can I even go after that sentence? The torture and the torment that this profoundly evil thing does, and that energy is also part of the sustenance of, you know, the empire of evil that lives on the membrane of death. This is all old status quo that is in the process of changing. So my informing you of the existence of these things does not mean that they will continue to exist for forever, but this is an open conversation, naming names in a state of empowerment so that you can know what's actually been going on in your world. And all of that gross, disgusting, Epstein Island, underground tunnels, dead baby stuff relates directly to pornography, dating on Tinder, sex in the city, destabilization and diminishment of everything that's happening on your orange chakras, and how difficult it is to date in this world and to find true love in this world. So maybe that will make you feel better. If you're having difficulty finding partnership, just know it's not you. It's not you. It's your entire world is very effed. But there must be justice. And that's what's at the end of my notes here. So, you know, I talk about healthy sexuality and the way you're actually supposed to be. Then I talk about the hijacking of your sexuality and hijacking of your whole entire culture You should be enraged. You should be totally protective of your children and not accepting in any way the violations that have been systemic and cultural. And it's time for a profound re-empowerment of you actual humans. Because what's actually been happening is something evil and non-human, a grotesque monstrosity, has been eating your babies. And if I said that to you, if I said, hey, humans, your planet's been invaded by some evil, monstrous alternative species that eats your babies, you would be like, let's fight them right now, because nothing is stronger than the protective impulse of mammalian parents to protect their children. Now flash back to what I said just a couple of hours ago about the pry bar being used to break apart the nuclear family, mommy, daddy plus baby, and having to pump your breast milk and go back to work, because those bonds are incredibly strong, and people will find that summon the strength to lift up a Volkswagen if it's on top of a baby. People do amazing things to protect and heal little tiny innocent children, especially their own. So if I told you, hey, humans, earthlings, your planet's invaded and this evil monstrous thing is trying to eat your babies, you would be like, point me in the right direction. I'm gonna get a GUN. I'm gonna kick ass. I'm gonna open up my can of whoop ass, and I'm going to fight against them immediately. That is the appropriate mammalian response to what you are experiencing right now. So you have actually, as a species, as humans, a huge amount of healing to do with this, because there's a huge amount of responsibility that must be assessed. That's why everybody wants the dangling carrot of the prison barge to Gitmo. You need to know that these people are facing their responsibility, but then also to protect your children. So I've only seen a little bit of this as it has been leaked in dribs and drabs. For example, blah, blah gymnastics coach was abusing the children that he was coaching. This is a real thing that happened. And so then he went to, it was like a university level gymnastics program. And there was a court case and he became discredited. But so it's good. One guy went to jail. Some children were protected. But what happened was, human parents saw that news story and they said, well, I want to send my little girl to gymnastics so she can do tumbling, but I don't want her to be sexually violated by some creepola just because she's a little girl wearing a leotard in a sport where you wear revealing clothing. That's it. That you understand what's happening here. Now parents are being much more protective of their children. And also there's now much more of a voice for those who are exploited, that if a little girl or boy comes forward and says, blah, blah, coach or teacher or clergy did a wrong thing to me, people actually believe them, even though it is wildly destabilizing to the community, because now mommy and daddy and the entire community know that that is the type of thing that actually happens. So people are much more aware of when you have children, or even if you're like, for me, I don't have physical children, but I consider myself to be a protector of all children. And so if I were to be in a tumbling gym and I see something weird going on, I would have to say something about it. I'd have to call it out, because I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to sit there knowing about that and not say anything about it. Every single adult has had to rise to that level of responsibility in assessing the other members of your own community. Say, are you invaded by an evil monster that wants to rape and eat children? Because I don't think that that is actually a genuine human impulse. That's another big takeaway from my admittedly long classes. And thank you for those who are on board, because I love you. Thank you to the people who watch, my 3-hour-long presentations, because I know I have hundreds of people every week who are committed and who watch the entire video all the way through. I thank you for staying with me while I make these very long presentations, because I'm really laboring to articulate and to be very impeccable in the words that I use. And it's fast. It's not just like a 5-second meme or a little aphorism. So thank you for allowing me this much time to be able to really explain all of this. I don't even consider that gymnastics coach or Epstein himself, or even these politicians, I don't even consider them to be part of your species. I don't consider them to be human or part of your community. Either they are biologically or psychologically wildly different than you, or they have rejected you and your value system so much that they are literally not a part of the definition of what it is to be a community member. Do you understand? They are placing themselves out of the definition of what it is to be human. They are placing themselves out of the definition of what it is to be in community and the levels of responsibility that you owe towards one another in living together as a group, as a species. They're not part of you. They're not part of you. They're not acting like they're a part of you. You know, if you want to be in a family, you have to act like you're a part of a family. I'm an otherworldly visitor, and I act like you are my family. I protect you. I am enraged if something tries to hurt you. I would never let something exploit you. If I knew about it, I would do something about it. I act as if you are my family, even though we are biologically different. That is the distinction to be made between me as an otherworldly being and these other things that are so happy to inhabit and take over human forms, but only for the purposes of eating or diminishing or exploiting humans. And we haven't even really gotten into the unhealthy sexuality as it relates to exploitation in your world of professionalism. This is what has become known as the Me Too movement, but that is itself, while an acknowledgement of the degradation, a dilution of the breadth of the degradation, the wideness of it, the sense of sexual quid pro quo in order to have a career. And this happens amidst both males and females. So although it is generally presumed that it is the young, beautiful Hollywood starlet who goes to the known as the casting couch, and the old, decrepit, fat, and bloated, unattractive, usually male movie producer who says, chomps the cigar and says, hey kid, I'll give you a career. Let's just do this thing that is called, let me have sex with you, and then I'll give you a career. That is part of it, but it also happens to beautiful young men, because I've talked with some people who I would say escaped. They didn't get into Hollywood. They escaped narrowly being in Hollywood. I don't live that far from LA. So yeah, I've had people talk with me about this, about the way that they were preyed upon, but they escaped and they did not become a part of that system. And some of them are males. So it happens, rape happens to both males and females, sexual exploitation happens to both males and females, pedophilia happens to both males and females, just the violation is across both levels of reality. Usually the perpetrators are males. I have to say this. There are some old, gross women that do prey upon younger men, or they are somehow in positions of power and they're inappropriate towards both, you know, young males and young females. But it seems mostly like they're old, gross men that are doing this to younger, more attractive people. So wait, I have much more to say, but let me read questions and comments. Charlie B, and thank you for being here, says, really far-reaching topics. Thank you for such broad and clear explanations. Seems like distorted and dysfunctional isolations of the individual result in dysfunctional relationships with self and society, just as it is now known that cancer cells are electrically isolated from the surrounding organism, causing them to exhibit antisocial and non-natural or cancerous behavior within the larger organism. Beautifully well said, and thank you for bringing that up. So yes, it is considered to be a disease when it's a cell that kind of gets disconnected from all the rest of the body and says, I'm just me. I'm not, it's not like I'm connected to the rest of a body, or I don't owe anything to these other weird cells around me. They just, sometimes they give me food or nourishment or resources or oxygen. It's not like I'm connected to them or anything. So I can poop or exploit them or do whatever I want. That's literally what cancer is. And that's also analogous to when humans are so isolated and disconnected from their environment. They're like, yeah, this is just the planet. It sustains me. It gives me like food and water and oxygen and things to eat and stuff, but it's not like I'm connected to it or need to care about it or something, or the entire cosmos, sun and stars. It's just a bunch of energy and electrons and heavy elements and things like that. It's not like I'm connected to it or anything like that. So yeah, the disconnection is an example or is part of the pathogenesis. And The reconnection is part of the healing of the pathogenesis. But of course, reconnection for some of these extremely diseased and distorted personas would mean they have to take responsibility. I mean, you take responsibility, it means you take responsibility for the amount of misery that you've caused, which is enormous. So if you want to reconnect, be like, oops, sorry, I caused 10 million units of misery. Now I have to somehow rectify the scale. They're often unwilling to reconnect because they are unwilling to go into those levels of self-responsibility by seeing the impact they had on the everything around them that is actually part of the organism known as life. And Pedro, thank you for being here, says, we have a saying in Mexico that translates as, from several evils, choose the lesser one. I think Trump is the lesser evil. I agree. I agree. And in the time in 2016, I was hugely gratified that Trump was elected as opposed to Hillary Clinton, as she was overtly, transparently, connected to this evil, transparently a baby eater. And Trump had not yet evidenced his either integrity or lack of integrity. So then into like early 2017, I was still very hopeful that Trump would do what the much lauded draining of the swamp, or bringing the previous regime to responsibility. That was the whole idea, that he was supposed to get into levels of positions of power and then be like, oh yeah, that previous regime, they were baby eaters. And now here's the evidence. And now let's actually stop them from being powerful in the world and also stop this from ever happening again. That didn't happen. That did not happen. Instead, the baby eaters did like book tours, partied on yachts, have a lavish lifestyle, and President Trump rolled out warp speed subcutaneous pollutions and had you locked down in your houses while millimeter wave sky pollution apparatuses were erected in all of your neighborhoods. That's not good. That is not a protector. That is not someone that I would stand behind and endorse in any way. So at a certain point, it became very evident to me that he was marking time, dragging his feet, and wasn't going to get SHIT done ever. And then I was like, oh, I withdraw any support I might ever, or any expectation I might ever have had of this person being a man of the people, working for humanity, or doing anything good. You got it? I gave someone the benefit of the doubt, and he absolutely, I don't want to say rose to the occasion, fell flat on his ass and did not rise to the occasion at all. And then I said, oh, thank you for showing me who you really are. I now fully withdraw any support I might once have given to you and now speak openly against you. And that is where I am now. And I feel that people have become severely deluded in their continual safety and security blanket, like, Trump will help us, rock back and forth, it's going to be okay. Like, no, it's not going to be okay. And you're not going to get the justice that you desire from somehow reinstalling Donald Trump or having some whatever person, elected or elevated into a position of power in your government. All right, this is going to be difficult to hear, but in order to get actual justice in your world, you're going to have to dismantle all of your power structures, your government, economic structures, and religious structures. You're going to have to dismantle them. And, I talk about reno, not demo, renovate, not demolish. But when you do that, you take an assessment in your house. What has structural integrity and what is eaten by termites? Your whole entire government is eaten by termites. All right? You have no structural integrity there. Almost all of Judeo-Christianity eaten by termites. I know, that's not good stuff to hear. And then there's money and your economy, which is also similarly eaten by termites and is in need of a huge overhaul. You have very, very little to maintain in terms of these infrastructures that are the foundation of your society. And all of those infrastructures also are 100% implants and overlays that come from unhealthy supernatural or extraterrestrial or malevolent aliens that invaded your world a long time ago, and then they invaded you again, and they genetically modified you again, and then they told you to chop off your baby's penises, not fully, but just the tips, and then they told you to build a temple, and then they told you this, and then they told you that, and then this is where you are today. I hope that this presentation today lights a fire under your ass and makes you jump up and want to do something, as opposed to making you want to put on sweatpants and crawl into the blankets of your bed and never leave. Just hide under the covers and be like, it's all too big, rock back and forth. don't be intimidated by it. Don't be overwhelmed by it. You actually are hugely empowered, because they wouldn't want to steal and misappropriate your sexual energy if it were unimportant. Your sexual energy is everything. Your connection between your gonads and your pineal gland and the emission and generation of manifestation of reality is everything. That is why your species has been targeted. It's why your planet has been imprisoned. It's why you have been diminished as an entire culture. And when you recognize that and you reach into your own levels of individuality and self-empowerment, you recognize that you can upend and redefine this whole entire thing from your own internal generative and creative process. That is what I would like for your takeaway and your message, from your takeaway to be from my message and my sharing here today. So I have a rather bleak message, and I hope that you are not depressed in hearing it. I hope that you are agitated and irritated into actually taking action. And that action, I think that you cannot expect the profoundly corrupt government to cut off its own head. The flawed expectation, do you remember trust sessions, trust bar? Can I have any more venom in my voice as I say these words? It was beyond a frivolous psyop that kept you glued to your computer screen. It was a dark magic spell powered by the sexual degradation and rapes of many dead children that was used to manipulate and mind wipe you into being in a disempowered state, being passive and allowing horrors to continually be perpetrated upon you and your species and your planet, while you thought the government would fix itself. And no, you should not have trusted any of these people. And you sat there and you watched hand puppets, not you who are in my class, but my general accusation of you, the truther movement, you, those who are just beginning to awaken your insight, you, those who are just beginning to recognize your levels of spiritual empowerment and esoteric connectedness. You got fooled, and you sat there and trusted in the justice system of your profoundly flawed and malevolently infested government that is not even run by humans at this point. And it is a folly to trust in any of them. And right now, what you did not have a real election several years ago. You had a fabrication event, and the person that you think is president of this United States right now is beyond even the traditional sense of being a figurehead, a laughable figurehead, but even the figurehead is an illusion, as mostly what you're looking at is a bemasked actor. There is not even a genuine figurehead there who is being manipulated. You know, these United States presidents have been figureheads and manipulated like since Kennedy, and they have been, who's in the hand puppets is the intelligence agencies who are run by these negative supernatural forces. So even everybody was like, the FBI is going to data collect because they're really smart with all this cybersecurity stuff. Don't worry, it's going to diminish your own sovereignty. But it's good because they're going to be able to read everybody's emails and know who the baby rapists are, and then they're gonna arrest those baby rapists, right? And meanwhile, the FBI hasn't been arresting the baby rapists. They've got information on everyone. They know who's eating babies, and they have not arrested these people. And there's a reason for that, because they are totally complicit. They are not gonna police their own government. They are not going to police their own people. They are not going to bring to justice anybody who is in a position of power. At best, you will be targeted as a terrorist. I am hugely targeted by articulating these concepts as vividly as I do and as authentically as I do. And you can say, Aurora, how come you're able to talk about this stuff? And the answer is, I get huge blowback. you know what happened to me 2 years ago, and you know that that was meant to be a mortality event. I was not meant to survive that. They had intended for me to either die, go insane, or be infested by evil, be taken over, have it live inside of me and act through me. Clearly, that is not what's going on. And you know how that has how I have fought against them? To say that I flying rainbow lasagna is too simplistic. I use all of my psychic gifts and my flying rainbow lasagna inner genetic capacity to become more and more augmented so that I can do what I need to do to protect myself from the onslaughts of their attack. So every time they're like, oh, we don't like what Aurora is saying, we're going to smack her down like this, I get an augmentation. And I have had many, many augmentations of things that I can now do with my own psychic gifts to be able to protect myself and fight back effectively, which is what I do. So the fact that I am myself, I'm not mind controlled, I'm not behaviorally controlled, I talk about these things openly. Of course, I only mention certain keywords here because I don't want to be deplatformed here. But oh boy, I'm a huge troublemaker and they hate me and they already tried to eradicate me and couldn't do it. I'm going to keep on being a big mouth and keep on talking about these things. And I'm a total threat to their system. And at this point, I'm the uncontrolled variable and I'm not able to be suppressed in the way that they tried to do it. And also, I mean, like, we have triumphed over them multiple times, and they keep on being like, you know, when kids don't like it when you play cops and robbers and you shoot them and it's like, they're supposed to fall down and die. They're like, no, I didn't get shot. That bullet bounced off of me and I'm rubber and you're glue and I'm still alive. So these guys are like totally fabricators living in a fantasy world, and they get triumphed. They get smacked down all the time, and they refuse to accept it. They remember Pee Wee Herman, and he was like very juvenile, and he would be like, no, you didn't, nah, it didn't happen. That's what these guys do. They're not these you know, very intimidating, like evil, devilish creatures, and they're gonna flay you alive and all these things. They're like children, but not like good children. They're juvenile is a better way of saying it. They are puerile and juvenile, and you can easily win. And then they're like, oh, that's inconvenient to me. Mind wipe, do-over, let's pretend it away. And that's what they've been doing for a long amount of time. But the do-overs do not actually hold. And there is actually such a thing as cosmic citizenship, you know, larger galactic, mature, integrated consciousnesses that are like, you know, you can't just pretend yourself out of this. And that it's totally evident, because what did I begin this presentation today by saying? The world where I come from, where you can read people like a book. It's very, very obvious what is the truth and what is a lie and what's going on. And the people at that level in the galaxy, they're like, are you effing kidding me? Like, I can see what's going on here. You're not fooling anyone, and you just got your ASS kicked, and now you're pretending that that didn't actually happen. That's all they got. That's all they got is pretend it away. That didn't really happen. What's over there? There's a distraction. So yeah, that's their only move. That's their power move, is to try to pretend it away and wipe your mind. And if you actually remember and are consistent and don't allow that reality structure to be pretended away, then they have literally no response. And this has been the stress test of the cosmos, where you have the real fabric of reality and events that are supposed to happen, where you live in freedom. Your planet is not overrun. This thing has been here. You want to talk? This is big. I'm ranting, guys. Get ready. You want to change your money system? Great. You have to change your money system, because your whole entire money system, everything in human history for the past 5,000 years, has been based upon the sales, the off-planet sales of human misery. You do not have an economy that is based on barley, corn, wheat, gold, oil, or the toil of humanity. You have a sham economy that is like a vanity project that is 100% financed and propped up on rape and degradation and baby eating. That's the real currency that is sustaining your world of dollars and euros. Even a gold-backed currency, which is like, everyone's like, this is a gold-backed currency and that's going to fix everything. That's going to fix nothing. And I poop on that concept, because that it's a sham. You don't actually have value in your economy. You know what this thing that invented money values? Rape. It values rapes. How many rapes will you give me in exchange for what I want? And that is a very, very dark thing. That is what it values sexual violence. It values sexual misery. So this is also precursor to lesson 18, the dreaded or much vaunted lesson 18. That is actually would be in 2 weeks from now. So we're not, next week is the holiday week. Let's do lesson 18 on the holiday week. No. Have a beautiful week next week. Think about Christ consciousness, and the benevolence and innate goodness of God and light in dark times. Okay, we will have one more class. So we're going to have class next week, of course, and we'll have one more class, and then early January we'll do lesson 18 in galactic history. Talk all about this and why this thing values 5 rapes instead of 5 bars of gold. Gold means nothing. Means nothing. And you think, oh, the Anunnaki, according to the myths, came here in order to mine our planet for gold. No, they came here in order to set up an artificial money system in ancient Sumeria, where they valued these little tiny cone-shaped things of clay and said, this is valuable. You work for 5 hours to get one of these little cone-shaped things of clay, and it's worth this much barley. And they did all of that as a preparation for being able to exploit your souls and your sexuality and siphon that creative life force energy out of this world and into their projects. The little clay thing, it's worth nothing. Your dollars that are pieces of paper are worth nothing. And even gold and silver and shiny trinkets and rocks, they mean actually nothing. They are actually really not that valuable at all. They are just these stupid symbols that humans lust after and become hugely obsessed over, but that really they are symbols of how much sexual energy and degradation has been accomplished in your world. So your world up until this point has been hugely degraded and run by evil aliens who have their own, not economy, but their own value system that values misery. And your world has been a farm for misery. And the things that are, oh, sorry, my treadmill is stopping. And the things that are valued by these things are how much misery. And then from that, you can interpolate from that. Who is rich in your world? Let's name some rich people, like Elon Musk. Do you know why he is rich? He has created and generated and sustained an enormous amount of misery. Who are some other billionaires that you come to mind? Bill Gates, he has created an enormous amount of misery. Who else is rich? The Queen of England, enormous amount of misery. The Vatican and the Pope, enormous amount of misery. High-profile Hollywood celebrities, enormous amounts of misery. High-profile government, supposedly elected officials, enormous amounts of misery. Lady Gaga, pop figures, Taylor Swift, enormous amounts of misery. These people are containers for pure evil. And they're rewarded for allowing themselves to be containers who are exploited in this way. And they are rewarded concomitantly with the amount of misery that they create, generate, and sustain and make possible in the world through their own degradation. That's very dark stuff. Now, I did a wonderful workshop called Sacred Commerce. It doesn't mean that you have to sell your soul to the devil in order to be able to make money or have a business or live righteously in the world. We are totally redefining what it is. Just money itself does not have to be this evil, poisonous thing that you get the poison on you just by touching it. Because a lot of people that are in what is called the self-proclaimed truther movement, they're like, nope, I vow intentional vow of poverty for me, no money for me. It's all connected to the baby rape. I don't want any of it. But I'm trying to tell you, no, like, look, you can cleanse and purify the symbolic marker for energy that is known as money through your intentions and through serving one another. And we should be able to receive and use money. And it's literally the energy of the earth. But no, you're going to have to completely redefine what money is and what your economy is, because it's been used as not only a behavioral control mechanism in your world, but it is literally based on the foundation of misery and specifically violations and rape in your world. That's what that species values, species for lack of a better word. That's what that creature or organization values. And that is what it wants. And that's the motivation for you to align with money is to create more misery. But of course, like, you have to reframe and redesign all this. You must reclaim everything. You must reclaim your sexual energy, not allow this thing to define your dynamics, not allow this thing to define or encourage you towards your sex partners, not allow it to own or create your progeny, not be non-participatory, or non-conforming to the requirements of your government, your intelligence agencies, your economic systems, or your religious systems. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have money. You should have money. You should have the money. You should have the money, not those who participate in and are complicit with the generation and sustenance of enormous amounts of misery. This is part of the rectification that needs to happen on this planet, where people become billionaires through actually doing good things that help other people. And you get a lot of money because you're super righteous, not because you very effectively, created misery, or really raped a lot of babies, or really helped someone else rape a lot of babies. Wow, everybody needs to do something positive after we wrap this up. Like, I'm going to hug Cheeky. It's dark, but we'll just have a little walk outside in the garden. Please hug and kiss your dogs and cats and family members, and do something positive, and try to release, your distress from the honesty of the things that I talk about, and move into levels of empowerment and self-empowerment and finding of solutions. But just, recognizing the symptoms and talking about all of this is valuable, although it is very difficult. And I hope that you can sense from me, I'm not shrinking away and afraid to open up this can of worms and talk about these incredibly dark and difficult topics. It is also something that I don't want you to feel hopeless. I want you to feel that there are very real empowerments that are within your grasp, that you can do in your own life and in your communities and as a larger social presence. Just coming to the recognition of the truth of what I've spoken about should help you with that. And then, we're going to talk about galactic history, how your present situation is actually an outgrowth of something that is not only ancient on this planet, but ancient in your solar system, and out of balance degradations that have been happening all throughout time, space, parallel dimensions, and alternative timelines. That this is a very, very big thing. So the iniquity expressed through sexual degradation on your own planet is just the tip of the not very fun iceberg of malevolence and evil that affects and afflicts and limits consciousness in all sorts of different places. The solutions or antidotes that you develop here in this quote unquote petri dish will be applied to other times, places, and situations and circumstances. So please know that this becomes a valuable corrective experience as you find your own personal solutions within your own life, your own body, and your own family dynamic and community, your larger species-wide solutions, your larger planetary solutions, including flying rainbow lasagna, becomes a template for freedom in other places. This is a explosion, expansion of freedom. And freedom does not mean the freedom to rape and eat babies. No. Freedom, because freedom also means like, okay, if you're free to do that, then I'm definitely free to counter you. And I'm free to also prevent that, because I don't have to be like, first destroy these children and then I'll do some justice. I can be like, if you're going to destroy those children, I'm going to stop you from doing that. And then I don't have to have the evidence of the victims, and I'm able to prevent that. Charlie B says, thank you, Aurora, for engaging within the larger corrective experience. You are very welcome. It is literally why I am here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I came into this body when the original inhabitant of this body was being destroyed in adulthood through satanic ritual abuse. And this is not something that was merely a sexual rape violation, but was a form of timeline distortion technology and soul erasure technology. Distorting timelines is bad enough, but erasing a person's soul, that is a cosmically criminal act of the grandest scale. That was in 2001, and that is why I came into this particular life. And yeah, the evil ones have influenced human procreation and conception quite extensively. I, as Aurora, did positively influence the conception and creation of this body form, many decades ago. I won't share my real age. Many decades ago, when it was, created as a little tiny child, growing in its mother. But that doesn't mean that I thought that I owned it. I helped the creation of this person come into being. And then I said, you are free to live your life and make your decisions. And I'm happy that I contributed to these particular characteristics coming into being. And then that's very, very different than these other things that are like, breeding experiments. I didn't do a breeding experiment. As Aurora, I did not do a breeding experiment, but I did a positive influencing of the person who ended up becoming the container that I would come into. And I came into this container because soul erasure is an affront to the architecture of time, that your soul is supposed to be eternal, and there's not supposed to be any type of technology that can be used to negate your presence in time. And that is exactly what they were trying to do. And I said, that is not allowed. That is a huge crime. And I am putting myself in the line of fire to stop this from happening. So the satanic ritual abuse is at the foundation of my experience of being a walk-in and the genesis or generation and conception of this corrective shape that is known as the flying rainbow lasagna. It's very, very dark stuff. And when people ask me about my origins and where I came from, I do not always tell them, well, because it's hard enough for people to be like, well, like, so wait, this other person died and you came in, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a body snatcher, blah, blah, blah. But then also, how did that other person die? The answer was they were being ritually abused to death. And it's very, very different to just die by being hit by a Mack truck as being ritually abused. When you're ritually abused, usually your consciousness gets harvested into a hell realm, and then you get to be there and be continually fed upon and exploited by the horrible creatures that are there. That's all totally distorted and not ever supposed to happen. You should never be tortured to death and then consumed by demons in your afterlife as an innocent. All of that is incredibly wrong. And this embodiment is my opportunity to rectify all of this. So this concept is very dear to me, or I'm very passionately invested in rectifying this concept. And also I have a cosmic law justification or motivation, because in cosmic law, what you send out comes back to you. And this is another way of saying, if something affects you directly, you are ordained to have an impact on it. So if whatever, if there's a bird that's going to fly into my house and do something in my house that's going to hurt me, then I'm like, wow, I don't have to just let it fly into my house and then deal with the aftermath and pick up the broken glass. I can actually stop that bird from flying into my house. So when this soul erasure was happening, it's all of this stuff was affecting me directly. And it doesn't just have an impact on me, it has an impact on all of you. So I had the cosmic law door opening motivation to be able to have an impact as a walk-in for my own personal motivations, but also this is connected through integument to many, many, many other structures. My life as a flying rainbow lasagna is connected to many, many, many other structures, and the rectifications that I'm able to emanate by my dance, but also by my presence here, sharing this information is a big part of it. As I talked about, like what you're thinking about when you make love is manifest. Your mind and your consciousness has a huge impact on reality structures that you make, the stuff that you make happen. When I have a presentation like this, I'm affecting your mind. So I really thank you for opening yourself up to what I have to say, especially difficult topics like this, because it allows me to have a greater impact on rectifying, fixing, and healing the fabric of time and space. And you become collaborative partners in that rectification process. And it also relates to the fixing and healing and rectifying of any degradation that you might have felt in your own life. This is actually a positive thing to end on. You know, if you have been abused or raped or violated in some way, it does not mean that you're always going to be at an angle. You're always going to be diminished. You're never going to be your full self with 100% of you and your energy available to you. What you can do is something that is called soul reclamation, where the amount of energy that was siphoned off and taken from you in that moment, you are able to receive it back. And when you do that, what you're doing is literally divesting energy from evil. And if every one of you drew back your energy and divested the investment that they had in your trauma, and you were whole again, not only does it feel great to you, not only is it empowering to you, but they don't have any money. That literally, they don't have any energy, they don't have any currency to be able to do evil or get stuff done. The only way they've been able to do evil and get stuff done is through the misappropriation of your creative and sexual energy. When you do soul reclamation, you take your energy back, and it hugely disempowers the evil, malevolent, supernatural crapola thing that has been trying to destroy the world. So I would encourage anyone who's been violated, sexually traumatized, or has experienced even being targeted, do the soul reclamation work and take your energy back. It's the best way to F those guys over. And Marie says, thank you for saying all these things tonight. I'm so thankful that you are here. Thank you. Thank you for that on a very real and profound level. Thank you for seeing me and witnessing me, and for allowing me these levels of authenticity. Again, I don't always go around announcing all these things, and I actually mostly build my life on levels of positivity and positive social expression and art and music. But you must know that this is the foundation of why I'm here, and also foundation of why I was attacked by them 2 years ago, and also the foundation of all of my activities during my whole day, because I fight against these guys all day long. I'm not even taking a break while I'm here talking with you and doing serious classwork and other things like that. This is my overt program, for lack of a better word, but I'm running a lot of other programs in the background, all of which include the rectification of these huge iniquities. I fight against them all the time, and I have all sorts of new and exciting ways to do it. And then I'm always innovating lots of new and exciting ways to do it. I'm smiling. I don't want you to think that I'm like, oh, hooray, another day of battle. I'm smiling because actually it is so much better to kick ass than to have your ass kicked. So yes, I have become hugely empowered to be able to face these things. But my goal is to have a decisive victory, where it is no longer necessary to utilize such a huge proportion of my lasagna processing power applied towards negating and fighting evil, and can actually be used towards the genesis of and sustenance of very, very positive reality structures. So let's envision decisive victory and rectification for all of these huge traumas and iniquities that have been experienced in this world. And that's a fair thing to imagine. That is not in whatever pipe dream or too big of an ask. It's not too big to ask for that. In fact, that's actually the requirement of what you need to actually ascend. That yes, you can ascend with baggage. Yes, you can ascend through trauma. But that really, the ascension process means like you have resolved all of these things. You need to resolve planetary-wide trauma. It's not just in your own life, but in your lineage, your culture, your species, your planet. That's a lot of trauma that needs to be resolved. And then when you resolve that, it's not like you puff out of existence, but then you have a completely redefined existence that doesn't involve these residual destabilizers, things destabilizing your chakras, the things that are residues on the membrane of death. So please remain strong and please remain hopeful. And even after, I'm going to wrap things up, I'm going to do something positive with my dog. Even after listening to my presentation today, I want you to take those things that I've spoken about and internalize them and digest them, but please move in positive directions. Please take this as an empowerment moment where you are seeing behind the curtains of reality, seeing the control structure, seeing the unfairness and injustices, and then responding to it in a very effective way to make sure that this is ended now, end this possibility here now, never going to happen again. Because you know what has happened in your incarnations. You have faced this thing in other time places, and it wasn't fully resolved, and it kind of scooted away into another dimension. And then you have re-encountered it. And this can be the decisive victory that resolves this, and you don't have to keep on re-encountering it. And that is a very, very worthwhile position to be in. So please optimize this experience to have the most impact that you possibly can. That will be long lasting. Do the job once instead of 10 million more times. This is an amazing opportunity to do the job once. And yes, you will move into an amazing exalted reality that is based in 100% love. I spoke a lot about the negative stuff in my presentation today. It was very weighted towards negative and not very much towards healthy sexuality, but healthy sexuality and the healthy expression of love and the building a world out of love, that is your true destiny. That is what real cosmic lovemaking is. That is the real connection between your sexuality and your passions and your Christ consciousness is. You make a world of pure and complete love, and that's only inhabited by love. And this other stuff does not exist in that level of reality. That is very, very possible. And it is the goal of what we are doing with this metamorphosis of reality structure and metamorphosis of social structure and metamorphosis of you as individual beings. So thank you for your own individual efforts towards that. Thank you for your own healing and growth. Find you all to be courageous, valuable, amazing people in the work that you're doing for yourselves, your own personal growth, your protection and healing of your own families, short-circuiting of negative family dynamics and cycles that came from the past, and commitments to new parenting styles, not to send those traumas forward to the next generation and onward into the future. Thank you to those of you who have children. I have some wonderful people who are in this class. They're not always here, like, when I record, because they have children. They share with me some of their parenting and some of their examples of how they're raising their children. My hat is off to you. Thank you for trying to do what you're doing. Thank you for trying to have positive, loving relationships, build families, have children, protect them, guide them, raise them towards their greatness. This is the best of what it is to be human. This is the best of who and what you are as a species. Thank you for your efforts. It is, so you're trying to do the impossible and you're doing it. You're doing an amazing job. So thank you for all of you who haven't given up and who have decided to procreate, bring children into this world, and redefine what it is to have families, to have relationships. Thank you to anybody who tries to have an actual loving partnered relationship with another person, to find someone of value, to be committed, to be vulnerable, to form these connections between your heart and your emotions and other people. It's very brave to try to do that. I'm very, very happy and grateful and encouraging for you to do that. And please hold the vision of moving into a world where you will be able to have healthy relationships, healthy social dynamics. Everything will be redefined in terms of sexuality, but healthy generations moving forward. And Pedro says, any tips for Christmas to avoid giving energy to pooties? Yes, absolutely. So this is a totally other level of teaching, but a big part of Christmas and Jesus and the concept of Jesus Christ and religion, it's at the foundation of the Techno-Inquisition. It is at the foundation of the nano stuff that has been implanted in humans that judges you as if it is Christ, but it is not Christ. And then it just says, I'm going to punish you and I'm going to reward those guys. This, our artificial Antichrist thing, it rewards evil. It rewards those who are complicit with the regime and create misery. And it assaults and destroys those who are truly in Christ. So in terms of Christmas, please try to align with the true spirit of Jesus, or AKA Yeshua, Jesus Christ, There's an actual person, an actual teacher who is, I say presently, not like was in the past tense, remains an amazing person, an amazing consciousness who is a freedom fighter, who essentially came here in confrontation of the satanic religious structure at the time, which said, mutilate your babies and kill a bunch of animals. And that is how you worship me. And was critical of those practices and tried to create an entirely new terrain as to how we have a footing or a relationship between ourselves and divinity. This guy is a freedom fighter. He is not an empire ass kisser. He doesn't agree with the present administration or the people who were in power at his time. And of course, they did character assassination and they co-opted his name and they made this fake religion in his honor. But remember the true guy and connect to his true values and spirit. And that is who is really inside here. When your passions really connect to your insight over here and you manifest reality, that is who you are actually with. And that is how we create this incredible new level of existence that will be here, truly a paradise realm through that level of reconnection. Just move away from all of the hijacked, established, organized religious structures, and just try hard not to be too diminishing of those who are in those control structures. Many of them are trying to do the best they can. People are often in established churches because they need guidance. They don't know what is truthful and they are looking for goodness. And you'll never be punished when you're looking for goodness and you're looking for Christ. But it's just unfortunate to have your energy siphoned off or negatively associated by being part of something that is a distortion mechanism. So no judgment for people who are part of actual churches, no judgment for people who are looking for goodness and doing the best they possibly can, no judgment for people who are reading the Bible and taking it literally or allegorically or fictionally. Thank you for trying. Thank you for trying to be better people. Thank you for trying to improve yourself. Thank you for trying to conceive of a better world and do what is right. And for those of you who have a clearer vision and who are open to a more challenging interpretation of who was the God of the ancient Jews, who wrote the Bible, what is the Bible really about? What is the Bible really asking for? What is circumcision really asking you for? What are these things really intended to do? Thank you for your openness to be able to non-judgmentally explore these topics. So yeah, and actually, I think I shared this, I'm not sure where I shared it. There was a good video that I watched that was a scholarly presentation by philosophical doctor who is an expert in the ancient Middle East. And he talked all about the mystery cults of the ancient Greeks, how the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians influenced the early Christians. Just you got to have the context for the early Christian church and the way that things were taken and changed and distorted. But once you start to do that level of historical digging, you'll see and you will recognize and comprehend. And also you can find goodness even in these incredibly distorted places. Goodness happens even in corrupted churches. People get inspiration even by reading a Bible that is, a distortion document, that people still get uplift. You know why? Because God is everywhere. Because God is inevitable too. God can certainly speak to you through a distorted and edited religious text, and you can have divine interactions even within a corrupt church, and you can do good things for people even in a flawed church that isn't perfect, but that does good things for charities in your community. So yeah, I know this. Look, I have to applaud myself. Look at the landmines that I stepped over today. Transgenderism, homosexuality, corruption of Judaism and Catholicism, or whatever the established Christian church, to Me Too movement, exploitation, the diminishment of humanity via government control structures, social and economic control structures, and gender roles, and a male-dominated society, and the ways in which males are burdened by their, I don't want to say malfunctioning, but the badly wired arousal connections in your genitals. It's been a long day, so good job on me. Time to go hug and kiss dogs, cats. Do something fun, guys. Do something fun, positive, and life affirming. And yes, we will assemble here same time, same bat channel next week. And that will be, I know, right around the holiday week. But then after that, we'll do galactic history. And after that, we'll wrap up the semester. And then after that, we will start this whole fun process again from the beginning, probably to mid to late January. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.